There was a love once. I shaped it with my hands, until in its forms I saw sunlight and streams, and earthy verges sweet with grass. It fit easily into my pack, and made peaceful the years of wandering through forests in retreat and down the river's tragic flow. On the day we broke upon the shore of a distant land, I fled, cold and bereft, fighting curtains of ash up through the snows of the pass. In the heaps of spoil, among an enemy victorious, my love floundered in the cracked company of kin, broken down blow upon blow. And now, as my days lower into the sleep of regret, I dream of fresh clay, finding these old hands where the wind sings of love.
Hello, and welcome to the Legendarium Green Team's Malazan series. Welcome to episode 2 of the Crippled God series. We are blazing through this last book. I am Befuddled Panda, and I'm joined by Ash
Hello, hello.
and Janeth as a boy.
Hi.
Unfortunately, Hurin is under the weather and will not be able to join us for this discussion today. But he should be back for the next couple episodes.
Oh man, wouldn't it be sad if someone missed the last episode?
That would be very sad. We would do everything we can to make sure that all four of us can make the last one. Anything we want to get out of the way before we get into the episode?
No, I'm just a Malazan boy today.
Just a Malazan boy.
I have been driven so over the edge of the big epic military fantasy by all the Malazan and Backer I've been reading that I actually started reading Sarah J. Maas. Are you familiar?
Are you serious? Wait, which one?
The Court of Thorns and Roses.
Okay, I have to do a plug. The episode that the Green Team did on that book is actually releasing tonight, as of this recording. So, Mr. Anderson, Little Red, Merlia, and myself.
It's like so far out of my alley. Like the whole time I was pitching Malazan to my former boss, she was pitching and pitching Abercrombie to her because she liked Game of Thrones. She was pitching all this stuff like this, not this author, but like similar in that genre stuff. And I was like, no, that's not my wheelhouse, not my wheelhouse. And now I'm like, I got to break out of this wheelhouse. And I was like, I saw my coworker reading it and I was like, bought for 1 credit, and I just started it. So
I mean, there's a reason why she is consistently on bestsellers list week after week. Like,
I like it. I mean, it's really good. It's a very predictable, but like
yeah,
that makes it like very comfort foody when you're going
yeah,
from
that makes it
Backer and
quick.
Erikson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm about to start on solar stuff.
Solar stuff?
I
What does
just
that mean?
ordered a book to study for the NABSAP or whatever it's called, the associate exam, certify you to work in solar.
Oh, I did
Like
not,
solar panels?
Yeah, like designing them or selling them or installing them or that it's a like a catch-all associates cert, and then you like go into the industry and learn stuff, and then you go back for more narrowly focused professional certifications after you like have some experience.
I never thought about it, but it makes sense that they would have certification exams for working with that technology.
There's some jobs you can do without it, but like if you're gonna be an installer, which I'm not ruling out, at least at first. I don't really want to be an installer because like I don't want to die, but you know, it's easy to get your foot in the door, especially if you like show up on time and you
Mm,
know make an effort because like
yeah.
that not to be stereotyping construction workers or anything, but like a lot of solar panel installers are stoners who don't show up on time and don't take it seriously and don't want to like put
Mm,
the effort in. So if you do that, you can like rise up very quickly and out of installing. I hopefully can avoid that. My dad was never an installer, and I like living and not falling off a roof or electrocuting myself. But having the certification means you learn stuff that makes you less likely to electrocute yourself, at least.
yes.
Maybe not less likely to fall off a roof, but But yeah, I would much rather be anywhere else but on the installing side of things. But I'll see what I can do.
I did get solar panels installed for my house, and it took them 2 days, but I also don't have like a huge property, so it didn't take. There aren't like that many panels, but it's worth it. I think for me. Do you have summaries for us, Ash?
Why, yes, I do. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
They were actually quick. Yeah, I didn't post them this time. I wrote them like an hour or two ago. They were quick to write this time. That was a
Oh,
nice
really?
break. Yeah,
Oh, good.
I was expecting them to be horrible once again, but no. Chapter 8. Falash's handmaiden retrieves a ship from Umtos Falak. Silchus Rune picks up a new sword. The Leosin breach curled Ghislaine.
I think it was the opening scene for chapter 8. That was disgusting. It was like Thorol. It said Thorol fell, her screams deadening to choking, hacking sounds as shards crawled down her throat. She writhed and twitched, and the swarm grew sluggish, feeding, fattening. I was like, oh, since when did I walk into a horror novel?
Since when? I mean, since like at least probably Gardens, if not Deadhouse Gates.
It's a different kind of horror because this is like I'll be honest with you, I don't really understand the shards. It seemed more like, gross, creepy crawly things kind of situation. I don't know what they are though.
You can think of them as like locusts, kind
Oh,
of.
okay. Oh, okay.
There is
I
more,
remember.
but yeah,
Yes, there was a description of them. But
yeah,
see, I blocked it out of my head because I was like, I don't want to know this.
too traumatic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
gross.
yeah, and then it makes for quite a contrast when it's the like immediately the children start eating the shards themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, you need food, so.
They're doing what it takes to survive. Yeah. Omtos Falak. Okay, I don't know if she actually goes to Omtos Falak, but the hold that Flash's handmaiden goes into, I
Mhm.
find it just kind of like hilarious how inhospitable it was.
Mhm.
She gets attacked by like voles.
I
Yeah.
thought I thought the Voles were particularly funny because they were talking about it ahead of time and they
Uh-huh.
like made it seem like that was the most like outlandish and like not to be believed dubious parts of the stories about what Antos Velak is like. And then she's like, "Oh, the Voles," and I was like, "Yeah, it's great."
Yeah, she's just bleeding everywhere.
Wait, so, I mean, I think it is interesting where based on what we know so far up to this point about Tospalak was it should be icy, and that's really all
Mhm.
there is. I just think of Antarctica for some, you know, relatable imagery. But then you go in there, she goes in there, and it's like, oh, there's a whole forest, and there are animals in there.
It's more like Alaska.
Alaska?
Yeah, because it's like there's a whole wilderness, but it's
Yeah,
also icy.
yeah, that's true.
I think it's somewhat ambiguous if it is actually Omtos Falak. Like,
Right.
Sister Equity later is just like, no, that couldn't have
That
been
can't
Omtos
be.
Falak. Hood himself doesn't take a stance on the issue, but they like it is his ship that they get. So I think
Right?
it's entirely possible that it's just like when Flash opened the thing, Hood was all like just guiding them to what they need, and what they needed was a ship. So this
Mm.
is where he had a ship. So who knows if it's actually Omtos Falak? It could be.
I think it's on just Flack because otherwise, why would the rumors about what the worst thing she would encounter in Omtus Flack match what she actually encounters? Like, I don't know.
It had to come from something true.
Yeah, it seems to me like just like him trying to like kind of give a little bit more depth to Omtus Flack. Like, no, obviously it's not just ice in there. Much like when they go to um the Leosin Warren and House of Chains, it's not just fire. Like there's other things going on there.
Yeah, my only problem with my main problem with this is that since Omtos Falaka is not just ice aspected but death aspected, it's and of course Steve has his little spiel about contradictions here, so it might not be a problem. This seems to contradict this seems to be like a place of overwhelming life,
Uh-huh.
um, whereas an ice death aspected thing doesn't seem like it would be like that to me.
You know what is interesting? This is a tangent. So on the surface, I mean, there are a couple examples of this. So you could look at like wildfires, you could look at like animals in the wild dying. Like on the surface, it's just like about death and destruction. But if you look deeper, right? For example, when salmon swim back from the ocean up to the rivers to spawn, right? They die after they spawn, and then their bodies, because they came from the ocean, all the nutrients from the ocean are then released as their body is eaten and decomposes, and the ecosystem in those areas are particularly rich. So that could be that kind of contradiction that he's painting.
For sure. I think that's a good point. Um, yeah, and this is actually kind of why I like Direct showing up in these chapters, because she introduces like Shadow, like a kind of middle ground. She's like a goddess of rot and decay, but like with decay comes always new life.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a cycle, right?
Hmm.
Also, like a lot of places that have to do with death in the series and the dead even are more full of life than you would ever expect them to be. Like the Jagcut Hell and Bone Hunters, I think it is. When they go to like the Jagcut Land of the Dead or whatever it
Oh,
is,
yeah.
there's all those like creatures that are there, that are like living there. Like it's an inhospitable to humans ecosystem, but there is an ecosystem, even though it's like the Jagcut Hell or Land of the Dead or whatever you want to call it. So
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. We get a fun little scene here with Silchus Ruin, Decembre. I think it was. Yeah, I think it's Decembre. The little bitch part of Dassam Ultor that's split off. He's kind of just moping around, and all of the gods that like are just horrible,
Uh-huh.
wanting to feed off of the crippled god. I like that we get like a little check in with them here. We haven't gotten like, okay, I think it's the first time Beru has shown up in the entire series, right?
Other
Like
than just
she's
being mentioned.
yeah, it's just like a swear word the entire time. Yeah, it's nice to get what the like we have what like 5 or 6 gods have been doing like Drek, Shadowthrone, Cotillion, Hood, arguably Animander, and then like Poliel and whatever. And then here's all the rest, and they're just kind of pathetic losers.
but why are they there? What is the location? Why did Silchus Ruin go there?
So the location is the eternal fall of Coltane. I think they're just kind of like attracted to the metaphor, right? Like he's, oh my god, there's like a new kind of god thing being born here. Um,
Mm.
why did Sil just go there? He wanted a weapon, right? Like he's like
Yeah, yeah. No, I knew the answer to these questions. I just wanted to push it at the Coltrane thing. Like
right,
yeah.
yeah, fair enough.
Uh I love how the impacts of the fall of Coltrane are still like reverberating through the whole series, like all
Mm,
along. Like it's one of my favorite aspects of the series is like how it doesn't end with the fall of Coltrane, that it keeps on coming back up and up and up and up over and over and over again, and we see it from like so many different angles, and I don't know.
Well, yeah, because I think um, basically after Dead House Gates, uh, everything that we're seeing is somehow a consequence of the chain of dogs.
hmm.
A lot, well,
It's
not everything maybe, but a lot of
a
things.
lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, maybe yeah, it wasn't too prevalent in Memories, or and obviously Midnight Tides being a prequel wasn't in there, but yeah, like everything else.
Yeah, because Memories of Ice was kind of overlapping, right?
Yeah, they were like
Hmm.
together.
Yeah. So I guess actually, let me rephrase. A lot of what in the books that happen after Dead House Gates and Memories of Ice are the consequences of Black Coral and of Coral and of Dead Chain of Dogs.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's like a lot of this book actually, when you put it
Hmm.
that way.
I absolutely yeah. It's one of my favorite aspects of the series. The historical resonance that just occurs and occurs and occurs, and like past tragedies and triumphs are kind of like endlessly reverberating. They're like they
Mhm.
never go away. There's and so like it really brings like a sense of like an increased sense of cost to these atrocities that happen, because you don't just get to for example, genocide of people for free. That has real consequences in Malazan. You
Right.
can't just do it and forget it. And there's always this sense of like things coming due.
Hmm.
It's like almost like karma.
The Siege of Kale even is still coming
Mhm.
Yeah.
back up over and over.
If I were a historian in this world, right, these events, so like Pale, Chain of Dogs, and Coral, they would be, I don't know what the technical term is, but they would be like anchor points, like moments in time and history that kind of like World War II for us, where like we're just going to study it to death, right? But there's always still like more to be like different perspectives to look at it from. And then what you would look at is, okay, what events led to those moments, right, to happen, and then what were the consequences after? So it's almost like the bookmarks in the book of like time and history.
Can you imagine the endless biographies that would be attempted to be written about Coltane or like
Right.
Dewjack or Whiskey Jack? Like, oh god, so much arguing, so much
Yeah.
speculation, so much trying to get into the heads of people.
It's interesting you call them anchor points because there's a uh, board game called Star Trek Chrono Trek that I really like. It's by the people
Okay.
that make Flux, and it's
Oh, okay.
about timeline manipulation. So everybody's a different character from the Star Trek universe, and you have different goals of how you want the timeline to be. And if the timeline is that way at any point in the game, and there's not any fractures in the timeline, you win. And it's all based on anchor points and linchpins. And if you flip the linchpins,
Linchpins.
the anchor points flip in response. They are
Mm.
like linked anchor points throughout the timeline to each linchpin. And World War II, and how it turns out, is one of them.
Mm.
If we're gonna shout out media that does this well, I have to mention Steins Gate, right? The
I don't know what that is.
oh, it's an anime. It's like kind of small scale time travel stuff. It gets real weird, and it is
Huh.
absolutely excellent. One of the central conceits is they invent a machine that allows you to send messages back through time, like
Okay.
text messages, like a very short string of characters. You can't like
Okay.
send people back, really.
But you can tweet into the
Yeah, you
past.
can tweet into the past. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And of course, you have to mention Spider Verse for canon events, which is kind of like this concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although in this case, it's not like people are trying to go back to change what happened. And yeah, I guess that would be an interesting um kind of like thought exercise to do after we finish the series is what events would you have changed?
Oh, Malazan counterfactuals?
What the consequences of that would be?
Yes, that is a fantastic. That could be an entire sub series. I love that idea. That is
Oh,
fantastic. Yes, yes, yes.
oh my
We get
goodness.
some educated Malazan fans on, like Lee and
Yeah.
Moira. they they can provide a bit of class to our speculations.
Oh, okay.
And then AP can make a video about how we're all idiots. And
Yeah,
Yes, of
AP's like,
course.
no, it doesn't really make sense to do this. Like, counterfactuals, historians well know is like it's like futile endeavor to predict anything. It's a waste of time, but I guess it's fun. So you uneducated masses can do it if you want.
We'll just invite him onto the episode and then he can just tell that to our faces.
You just
There you go.
loudly roll his eyes at us. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the weapon that Shadow Throne gives Silchus Ruin, is that is it Dragniper?
No,
Or no, Dragniper
it's
is
a
just
husk
shattered.
sword.
A husk. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Oh, and husk swords can kill dragons.
Yeah, it's sort of what they're made for, or at least this is what Shadow Throne and Silchus claim they're made for.
Well, later on, in like chapter 13, right, with Yeden Derek, he has a husk sword too.
Yes. Yes, he found a husk sword on the beach and it had been shattered, but over the eons it kind of reforged itself, which is a neat concept.
Reforge itself, huh?
Yeah. Kind of like a metaphor for the Shake themselves, eh?
I thought that he found it broken and it reforged itself like in real time, like in front of in before his eyes kind of thing, but maybe I misunderstood it.
I don't remember. I don't think it's super important which of the two it is, but yeah.
Well, is it alive?
Husk swords are probably the most alive weapons in the series, I would say.
Oh, this is news to me.
For more
Yeah.
on this, read Carcanis.
Yeah.
When you said the dragon thing, I'm like trying so hard not to say things from Carcanis.
Ah,
That's all I'll say.
yeah. Unfortunately, it's a Carcana subject.
Pretty much like half of the things that occur in books 8 through 10 are like for more on this Carcanis.
Well, like, okay, here we haven't done the spoiler episodes since book 7, I think. Almost all of them involve Hurin and I just saying, "Well, this is Kark stuff." Like everything in the series, like as we were talking about, like the historical resonances, everything in the series is like kind of directly informed by the events of Carcanis that happened so long ago, right?
Yeah, but it feels like once you get to book 8, he's almost like writing for Carcanis. Like he's getting ready to write Carcanis and like so it's much more like intensive and
Yes,
I
yeah.
see.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, but all of these things can be fully enjoyed without Carcanus, I will say.
Yes, that's true too.
You know what you need to know about the Husk swords. Like there is
Got it.
more, but you know what you need to know.
Okay, just to confirm, because I feel like I did miss this reading up to this point. Dragnipur as a sword does not exist anymore.
Yes, it was
Okay,
unmade.
completely. Got it.
Yes, by Kaladin Brood. That's how Draconis got out. That's how Hood got out.
Right, because he used the hammer on the sword, but it's not like the sword is just shattered and could be put back together.
Probably not.
Okay.
This is a question that I don't know the answer to either.
Oh, okay. All right. Got it.
But for more on the aftermath of the events of Darujistan and Toll the Hounds, read Orb Scepter Throne. And Kaladin Brood is in it, and what he does next is in it.
Okay. Got it. I did have a question. So like one of my main qualms about villains, a lot of times of how villains are portrayed is like, I just want to destroy everything. I want to destroy the world, you know? And it's like, what comes after? Like what happens after you achieve that goal? Right? And for the Forcrua sale, so they want to get rid of humanity.
Hmm.
And then what?
Yeah, they want so far what I've gathered on the reread, I don't remember if there's more to it in the later sections of the book from the first read, is that they want like they think it would be just to have a world in which there is no capacity for injustice because there's no sentient beings besides maybe themselves question mark that are able to, you know, perpetuate injustice against other beings. So they want like tranquility, complete
Uh-huh.
tranquility.
The reading I have of them here, and yeah, I also don't remember if more is really laid out in the later sections. But the reading I have is that they have noticed how toxic the relationship humans have to themselves and to nature is, and they say,
Okay.
okay, this needs to end now. Like all of these injustices that we've seen throughout the series, they're just going to keep happening again and again and again and again, and we need to break this cycle. And the only way to break this cycle is for things to be exterminated. They're kind of like you know, Agent Smith in the Matrix.
Yeah.
You know, like humans are a virus. They're not
Uh-huh.
actually mammals. They stink. We
Uh-huh.
need to get rid of them. So I don't know how far this extends to the other races for them, but yes, the confluence that all of these species, the Leosin, the Forkrulasail, Olar Ethel, like all of them have realized there are things that humans are uniquely destructive for, and it's not worth keeping around.
But the problem, wouldn't it be like for all the gods that are in play who like side with the Forkura sale? If there are no humans, then the gods would have no worshippers?
Aren't the gods against the Forkrulasail though? They want to keep feeding on the crippled god.
They
And
do want to keep, yeah.
and the elders want to get rid of those gods that want to keep feeding on the crippled god. So they do want to wipe out all humans, but they want to wipe out the Forkrulasail too.
Okay.
and they want to regain control and get all those gods that have those human worshippers out of the picture.
Okay, so they want to selectively kill off humans,
Who?
the gods, other gods.
They don't. I don't know that they want to get rid of humans. I think they just want to keep feeding on the fork
Okay.
of the ship.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of uneasy alliance that's going on between these factions. Like as we see, even the Folklore Sale aren't really unified in this goal. Like
Right.
Sister Equity's like, well, we can kind of keep humans as livestock and just like cull them like repeatedly,
Mm,
and kind of keep around like populations of them, in the name of balance. And I don't think the Elder Gods, besides Olar Ethel, want to get rid of humans. They just want them to be like subservient.
okay.
So they're kind of like in an easy truce where they're like, okay, well, the dominance of the humans has to go, so we can agree on that. And they're all just planning on like taking advantage of the others at when the time is right.
Okay. Got
Well,
it.
they were saying that by releasing Carabas, they would be ending the world.
That we do get more context on later in this book, I think. Right? We do know Erastus wants to be like master of the Holdskin. He wants to kill the Warrens, right? And
Hmm.
restrict the access of magic. Once again, like humans will need to go through the Elder Gods again. They will need to beseech their aid, and like they'll need to be over all powerful
I
again.
see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because Cruel, the thing that Cruel did, he democratized the entire thing. It's like everyone can use magic
Right.
now if they want to. Um, and Erastus is very angry about this. He wants to go back to the way things were.
Got it.
Took him long enough to be angry about it.
Yeah,
He
he
was
just
like just sitting on his butt for hundreds of years, you know?
thousands,
Yeah.
tens of thousands.
And then suddenly he cares. I
Well,
don't know.
Yeah,
maybe it was he has cared. It's just that things have gotten less and less in his favor, and now he's like, okay, I gotta do something about it.
There I forget why he like kind of wakes up. It's in book 5 and 7. There's reasons why he does kind of come back around.
yeah. I think a very underrated reason or overlooked reason is Feather Witch's influence on him. It kind of gets
Mm,
called out, I think, in this book, or maybe the Dust of Dreams, but like she changed how he saw things
right.
because of her relationship to him. Like she was a very power hungry person,
Yeah.
and his behavior noticeably changes at the end of Midnight Times, but also during Reaper's Gale. He kind of
Yeah.
wakes
Yeah.
up like
Yeah.
that. But he had initially renounced it for a lot of reasons that are kind of ambiguous. Like there's a lot that are suggested. The one that I like most is like people were praying to him for all these things, and then he
Right.
realized these prayers are contradictory. Like it's a zero sum
Right.
game. If I grant some people's wishes, I need to mess with other people because yeah, they're praying for their own selfish means. So eventually he got just tired of it and said, "Okay, I'm just leaving this pointless game."
Yeah. Which I don't blame him.
Yeah,
Like
right?
For
I see
that.
that. For that part. But yeah, okay, your explanation of Feather Witch's influence on him makes a lot of sense to me.
But back to your original sort of question about the fork rule sale and what after. There is sort of, we do kind of know that they're a little bit about their agenda for other species. Uh, they at least have a tenuous alliance, I think, I think it's been implied that they have a tenuous alliance with the Leosin and the Naruk.
Yeah,
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
so the Chamal and the Andy are on the chopping block too, at least, and maybe they're allies eventually, but at least like for now, it's
that's true.
kind of like the three Law and Order factions against the three like more libertarian races. I don't know if that's the way I would put it exactly, but you know what I mean. Like they are a little less concerned about like having you know this like fascistic order.
Yeah.
To the at least to that degree. I'm not saying there's none of that among humans or you know whatever. I mean, there's clearly still some remnants of the feudal system with the Andy, but you know what I mean? Like there's this
Yes,
very
yeah.
tight law and order approach with the Leos and the Assail and the Naruk that's different than the other
Right.
three.
Well, there was like mention of, the god of the Focruasil like died or something.
Yeah,
And some of the Focruasil are trying to get it back.
they're trying to get access to Akrast Corvalane back,
Yeah.
essentially, and it's been kind of blocked off to them for a while.
So do they just see like humans and how they humans are somehow causing that block?
That's probably a factor in their minds, right? Like the
I probably
chaotic
just
influence
glossed
of
over this.
humans on the world makes it more difficult to access order aspected
Mm,
magic.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't label any of the factions here as like libertarian in a sense.
I meant in the
But yeah, like
looser sense
yeah.
of the word, like
Yeah.
not not like these hyper rigid,
Mm,
law order justice. Not I didn't mean it in the modern sense.
Yeah, I would like label them as like the side of intellectual humility and non-fanaticism,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Which isn't to say there's not fanaticism
for
amongst
sure.
but like, if we're elevating them to caricatures,
Yes.
mm-hmm.
they're much less like the Assail, the Naruk, and the Leosin than the Assail, the Naruk, and the Leosin are. I mean, you know what I
Hmm. Yeah, and it is. I find it really interesting that Leosin, being order aspected, have consumed the blood of dragons now, because dragons are fundamentally chaos aspected. Like so, Aperil Forge, I think his name is. He's like kind of noticing this fundamental contradiction that they've introduced into their thing,
mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and yet he's not willing to turn his cloak. He's still I'm a good follower kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also doesn't want to die, I guess. At least not
Yeah.
that way.
Loser.
Although he spoke up, even though that might have got him killed.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
he's trying to rein it in, and it's not working.
I wouldn't say that those are like a doomed cause at this point, but at this stage in their journey, like all the dissidents have been killed. Essentially, they've been nailed. Their heads have been nailed to the tops
Oh
of
yeah.
walls. There's very little hope for them at this point in the series.
Ugh. Cotillion and Shadow Throne. They have a quick interaction in this chapter, and Cotillion says, "So you put her on a horse and gave her a blade and sent her back down her own trail to kill the biggest and meanest one." I, Shadow Throne grunted again. Bet she was smiling. I wasn't exactly sure who they were talking about. Do I just keep reading?
That's just a
That
keep reading thing.
okay.
Yeah.
You know who we haven't seen in a long time? Absalar, not Absalar.
That's yeah.
Actually, we did see her in these chapters.
We did.
Yep. She is not named. It took me forever to figure out who it was, but her and Talk the Younger are riding around on horses near the eternal fall of Coltane, and
Wait, really?
neither of them are named. It's after Talk's dream sequence. Riga is actually the woman in the dream sequence.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then
Whoa.
after he wakes up from the dream, it switches to Apsalar's viewpoint, but we don't get her name. So, I mean, I cheated. I looked at somebody else analyzing these clues. I was like, these clues should mean something to me. Why don't they mean something to me? And I looked it up, but their analysis checked out. It's Riga, Apsalar, and Talk in the in the
Okay.
in the
Okay.
scene. And it doesn't rely on spoilers. It's just relying on like working really hard to interpret the ambiguous clues taking place here. I mean, spoilers probably helped them figure it out, but he didn't write
Yes.
any of those in the
This is a
analysis.
Yeah.
post
Like
hoc
it's
thing that they're doing.
all
Yeah.
like all clues from the text
Okay.
that we just read.
Maybe you can point them out to me when we get there.
Was it this chapter or is it later? Is it the
It's
next one?
later.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then later.
Shall we move on to chapter 9?
Probably.
I think it is chapter 9, isn't it?
Oh
Sorry,
yeah, it is chapter
jump the
9.
gun on.
Yes. Chapter 9. Olar Ethel is a rebuffed from controlling Tool, who recalls a critical mistake made by Logros. Gruntle continues to lose himself to his tiger blood. We see the origins of Mappo and Ikarium's friendship. Hood gives a rather enthusiastic hickey to Sister Equity. Listen, it's been a long time for him. I think he can be forgiven for exuberance, let's say.
Huh?
I actually was really mad after reading that scene uh, because of how unwise it seemed to me to not exploit
Listen.
divisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, to not exploit divisions amongst your opponents, right? Like politically, it's not sound,
Yeah.
but it's Hood, so
I think it was the correct decision. But who knows? I guess this is a counterfactual.
Why do you think it was the correct decision?
Because I think when it comes down to it, okay, this is doing some guesswork. I think that the Forker LaSalle, being who they are, would pretty easily sniff out disingenuous actions on the behalf of whoever they're treating with, right? So if for example Hood makes a deal with them here, I think they'd be like, I think she would pretty easily be able to see through if he wasn't being actually genuine, if he was
I
dealing in
see.
bad faith. And even if they were dealing good faith, the problem with Sister Equity and her coalition is that their shaved knuckle in the hole is Ikarium, and they're planning
Right.
to use Ikarium against Sister Calm. And letting Ikarium loose is like a horrifyingly bad idea whenever it happens, right? Like he's a world killer essentially if he lets himself get out of control enough. So, it's a dicey
Life
proposition.
stealer.
And obviously, Sister Equity is not like she doesn't care about like she cares about the principle of the matter. She doesn't actually care
Right.
about like any of the human lives that like would end up being sacrificed. It would
Okay.
probably lead to the death of the coalition forces, almost certainly.
So he took her by surprise and just
Yeah,
extinguished all of that possibility.
he's like, I know that there are very few actual Forker LaSalle. There's like 12 pures, right? This is one of the 12 pures. We can just kill her now. I have reduced the effectiveness of the enemy forces by 1/12.
Are there really only 12 of them?
Yeah.
Wow. That's not a lot.
There's a lot of watered and whatever the next level down is. But yeah.
I don't remember.
Shriven?
Yeah, Shriven, yes.
Shriven.
Yes.
Shriven are just like humans, right? That just
With like a
are
little
down
bit.
for the cause.
They got some Forker LaSalle blood, I think.
Oh,
like
I
not
didn't
much.
even think. I thought it was like watered our Forker LaSalle blood, and then Shriven is like humans who are enthralled.
I think it's like Shriven are part Forker LaSalle in the sense that Barghast are part Thelum and Toblakai,
Gotcha.
Mhm. Shall we go back to the talk scene?
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
So they were talking. He's talking to an old woman who is like decaying,
Yes.
but the, I guess, like ghost of the old woman, or this isn't his dream.
It's in his dream.
She gives
She
him an
says she's
eye
in the
or
fold of
something.
love, which is interesting.
Uh-huh.
And she plucks her eye out and tosses
Yeah.
it to the fire,
Oh, toss it in the fire. Yeah.
and it's wax. She was a wax witch.
Oh, I see.
So, and then like in the very next scene, you have Absalar. So it kind of like there's like a connection between.
Okay, I kept thinking was Lostara eel, but that's, I don't know, because someone was now riding beside her on a huge gaunt horse, black as the sky overhead. She twisted round to glare at him. This is you? A flash of a grin, and then, sorry. Oh my goodness.
Sorry. Yeah, that was one of the clues. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And the black horse is like talks undead steed.
Oh.
Yep.
When
And
will
there
it end? How should I know when the damn gate closes? It's good to see you again, you idiot. Does he even know you're here? Da 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 da. Oh my goodness.
he is
Okay.
probably Crocus. I don't know.
Yeah, it says he leaned closer, shouted, "It's good to see you again." And then she says, "You idiot. Does he even know you're here?"
Oh, that might be Whiskey Jack then. That's Whiskey Jack.
Oh
Does
my
he even
God.
know you're here to talk? He's just talking about Whiskey Jack, right?
I have no idea.
Either that or Tool.
And to that question, his only answer was another grin. Where had he been? The man had ever infuriated her. And now here he was at her side, reminding her of all the reasons she'd had the first time round for doing what she did. Growling another curse, she shot him a glare. Will this get any worse? And then he says, only when we leave. And then she thinks, God's below the things I'll do for love. So that's why I was thinking, oh, is this like Pearl coming out from the grave with Lestara? But That's obviously wrong.
Yeah.
No, he's dead as a doornail.
Okay.
He's not going back.
He's, yeah.
So, okay, because I thought the gods below, the things I'll do for love. I thought she was um saying that the things that she would do for him who is now riding beside her, whom she loves, but that's not the case.
Yeah, no, she's talking about Crocus.
Yeah.
Cutter, whatever.
No, it was Crocus again. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had his moment.
To her, what she cares about is Crocus in any case.
Yeah.
Right.
She doesn't care about Cutter. Cutter's like a mistake in her opinion.
Cutter is, yeah, it's a failure of communication.
I read that and I thought I understood it, and then here I am like, no, I did not understand it.
I mean, I read it and I knew I didn't understand it, and that's why I cheated. So I was just like, I have to know who these people are. Because on a reread, if I don't get it, I just have to look it up, right? Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I've read the books. Like if
Mhm.
I'm not getting it now, I'm not ever gonna get it. I don't have it in me to read it 50 times before I figure it out, you know. I reread it about 5 times in a row trying to figure it out before looking it up too. Like I reread the
I
section
see.
over and over and over, and I didn't connect it to the previous section either, so I didn't know who the woman was. And then I looked it up and I was like, "Oh, I thought I understood the previous scene too, and I didn't understand that scene."
Nope.
Yeah, to me, at least on this, I don't think I caught it in my first read, but I did catch it on this read because like there is one character that is associated with wax in the entire series, right? Like it's
Okay.
Rhaegar. Like okay, there might be like is the Dying God at some point associated with wax a little bit? I don't remember. Or like Quick Ben has like little wax figurines. I don't remember.
Yeah,
As far as women go, it's just Rhaegar that's associated with wax.
I see.
And then there's also the section where they talk about how like the Malazans at least pay the families of their dead
Uh-huh.
veterans, and when that concept gets introduced, that's the wax witch.
Oh, yeah,
She
yeah,
had been
yeah.
living off of the pensions from
Of her
her
dead.
husband and sons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool. A little nice sleuthing exercise there.
I really like the Mappo Ikariam scene here. It's so sad.
It is sad.
I just like, man, Ikariam did some messed up things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to put it back together.
He just wants to put it back together. This
Oh
one
my
pot
God.
that he found.
Hurin would be crying right now.
Yeah. Although what is cool about that scene was because in our first interview with Erikson, he mentioned that he was inspired by one of his trips where he was walking on a trail and thought was gravel, but he looked closer and it was actually potsherds.
Potsherds, yeah. Yeah, that's it's some beautifully somber imagery. I especially like the part where Mappo tells him, "Oh, you fell down in some mud, and that's why you're all muddy right
Oh
now."
yeah.
It's blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's blood. Either way, then Ikariam notices that his sword is cleaned because Mappo cleaned it. He cleaned the blood off, and
Yeah.
then Mappo's like, "Yeah, it's while you're asleep, I cleaned the mud off the sword." So, jeez,
Yeah. Rough.
the start of their incredibly troubled friendship.
Very unbalanced friendship.
Yeah. Oh man, can you imagine how difficult it would have been to be Mappo all those years? Jesus.
He's a very patient guy.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Uh,
Do we care about Gruntle at all?
I mean, yes, but also no.
No. Yeah. Yeah, Gruntle is a real miss for me this book.
Yeah.
I I think he had his time in Memories of Ice, and then not ever since he left Regina, he's just like kind of a not interesting character to me.
Yeah. I liked him in the beginning of Toll Hounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like until he joins up with the Trade Guild, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then from there it's just like, okay,
yeah.
sure.
He's just like he doesn't even know why he's doing anything. I appreciate what's going on with him more in like specifically in this book now. I still think I don't like him very much in Told Hounds and Dusted Dreams, but like specifically in this book, I can appreciate where his character is going. Like, right, he's done this thing that he's very ashamed of. He's running from his human self. He's becoming Tiger Boy. I think that there are other characters that do better here. Like Sea Talk is, I think, really
Mm.
makes him kind of invalid. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about Gruntle.
Although, okay, he is a good vehicle for showing the cycles continuing into the future.
Mm.
I will give that. Tool and the Tlanema stuff. Interesting, kind of. Right? Like Logros was like, Dassam Ultor is gonna be our new god. Congratulations, Dassam Ultor, who himself is very upset about this entire thing. Yeah.
And Tool like protested, and
Yeah.
Logros thought it was because he was being replaced, but for Tool it was because like don't do what you did to me to
Yeah.
anyone else. Like that's horrible.
Like,
This poor
come on.
guy.
Have you not learned anything, Logros? Turns out no, Logros has not learned anything. And then yeah, all the EMAS around him are just kind of like, oh Jesus.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
because his thoughts are just like blasting.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even know it.
That is such like an emo anime like little subplot, you know? Like his dark emotions are like, oh, everyone around him is like, oh no, like constantly, but he's just like trapped in his own brain.
Who are we talking about?
Tool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he's just like walking alone, and then like he's walking along, and then all the EMS are like they're slave to his will, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
they're all like, oh, the pathos.
Right. In that section, th- something, an exchange between Ulag and Ristalev,
Hmm.
it did help me better understand what Ikovian did in Memories of Ice. So, um, the exchange was Ulag says to Ristalev, find something, a memory you can hold on to, a time of joy, of love even. When the moment comes, he paused, as if struggling with his words. When the time comes and you are driven to your knees, when the world turns its face from you on all sides, when you fall inside yourself and fall, find your moment, your dream of peace. There is none, she whispered. I remember only grief. Find it, he hissed. You must. He will see us all destroyed. That is the only peace I now dream of, Ulag. The he is Tool, I think, that they're referring to. She saw him turn away then, and sorrow filled her. See us? We are the Talanimas. We are the glory of immortality. When oblivion comes, I shall kiss it, and in my mind I shall ride into the void on a river of tears, on a river of tears. And I think it's just like all the parts leading up to this particular exchange was, and especially when you see Tool not being able to get that release of death, right? And he had to come back as a Talanamas, and the suffering that it caused him, that paired with this, like, I get it, because like in Memories of Ice, when Ikovian embraced the Talanamas, I was very angry about it, because the consequence of that was, to me, like, okay, all these other innocent lives had to die,
Mm-hmm.
and I still am upset about that. I'm like, why couldn't you just wait a little bit longer? But I also understand, like, if I were in Ikovian's shoes and seeing all of the suffering that these Chalanamas had already experienced, it's just like, okay, I can't do nothing. And I better understand and appreciate what he did. I'm still upset, but it's less upset.
Yeah, yeah. I think that when you look at the perspective of the Malazans, it's a very frustrating experience because, like, yes, and Malazans and Silver Fox, because that's what Silver Fox wanted, right? She was going to let
Right.
them all go after this battle. But then when you look at the perspective of the Imas and Itkovian, I think it makes perfect sense. I think it makes perfect sense.
I think when we come back to the whole thing about compassion, and it's also, I don't, oh yeah, it comes up later in the conversation between Krugava and Tanakalian. Like, if Tanakalian only wanted to embrace the people that he thought was worthy,
Mm-hmm.
which Krugava says to him basically, like, that's not embracing, that's not mercy, that's reward.
Yeah.
And so in this case with the Kovian, it's like, you don't have to do anything more. Like, I will give this to you freely.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Another moment that produces insane ripple effects down the road.
Yeah.
Did we already get? I don't know if it's making it into your summaries or not, and also it might have been for last episode. I don't remember if it was this reading or the previous one. The scene with Spindle, is that in this set of
Yeah,
readings?
the scene with Spindle. I didn't include it, but yes, this is in this section. I think it's chapter 10 or 11.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. But yeah, like we get a paragraph of Spindle. I think it's an excellent paragraph, and it catches us up on, okay, the Redeemer is not redeeming anyone anymore.
Oh
The
yeah.
High Priestess, what's her face? She was the last one,
Yeah.
and now the Barrow is being. I think it was being disassembled.
But also, wasn't there a Orb Scepter Throne callback there because he's like, "Oh, when I went to Darujistan, wasn't that a mess?" It's like Esselmont took him up to Darujistan for that, and then Erikson's like, "No, no, no, I need him down here." So we had a little sidebar there where he's like, "Oh, and that was such a mess." And
That's funny. Yeah, I haven't read through Orb Scepter Throne. That's like probably going to be the last novels within the Malazan Empire book I read because I just don't like Jerujistan as much as everybody else.
oh, I
I
love it.
see.
And that
Stonewielder is probably my next novels within the Malazan Empire book I read.
it's so weird that you're reading them out of order because they have so many like there's so much continuity between them. And there's so much that like builds through them all.
Yeah, yeah, most of all with the Crippled Guard, but yeah,
Crimson
yeah.
Guard
Oh, Crimson
or
Guard. Yes,
Triple
yes,
Cross.
yes.
One of
Crimson
those.
Guard.
I don't
Yes.
know which one you're talking about. Yeah. Well, the cool thing about OST is not, or one of the coolest parts about it is not even Darujistan. It's though I do like that stuff too. It's Moonspawn.
Hmm.
You get a lot of
That's fair.
stuff that happens in Moonspawn in that novel. They
Okay.
The how I've categorized Orb Scepter Throne this entire time is just like, oh yes, this is the book where we get to learn more about the exploits of Humble Measure, and I just I just don't care about Humble Measure. So
Well, guess what? That's not what the book is.
excellent, fantastic.
It 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 does deal with that a little bit, but it like subverts what you would expect it to be. So like I
Yeah,
expected that and I also didn't care about it, and I'm
great.
really glad that it's not the book that I read.
Like talk about like an uninteresting character setup. Getting more Vorkin is an enticing prospect.
There you do get that. Yes. And more of the Madron Badron and
Uh-huh.
yeah. And Malagrel or wait, no, not Malagrel. The other
Relic
Ralignam.
Nom.
They have the same name. It's just switched a few letters.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Shall we go to chapter 10?
Yes.
Excellent. Chapter 10. Stormy and Gessler take command of the Allied forces. Tenakalian takes command of the Grey Wolves. Krughava has a therapy session with Spax and Abrastal. You know what? Good for Tenakalian. You know, he's fulfilled his dreams of usurping Krughava. He did it through facts and logic. And the Grey Wolves have been revealed, I think, to the reader as a great example of why you shouldn't necessarily put a lot of trust in religious fanatics that you don't know the religion of.
Although it's pretty clear that there's like more than one strand of thought in that religion and that
Mm-hmm.
his is like the most like regressive and like kind of like rejected by the majority of the followers of that religion, and he's like kind of like usurping it for this like old previously abandoned dogmatic interpretation. So
So, how I read that scene was, and I think this is supported, there has been like a fundamental tension in the cult for a very long time, like the the culture of the parish for a very long time. They're like, how do we reconcile the fact that we worship these wolves and and have them as our gods of war and are humans that do human stuff and fight in these often pointless conflicts that have actually nothing to do with wolves. And I think Tana Kelly makes some really good points, right? Like Kuruhava, she kind of admits she's not actually serving the wolves.
Right.
She's like, I'm gonna reform this religion for good purposes, essentially, and she doesn't tell anybody about it. So when Tana Kelly makes this declaration, the debate, whatever, he's like using these established tenets that they have. It's like, okay, here is how I see a religion, and here is why we can't do what Kurugava does because she's there's a tension between the wolves and the adjunct. And since we're a cult of the wolves, we need to follow the wolves. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess this makes sense. And then Krukava kind of has to go away. But yeah, like there clearly is multiple ways of seeing it. I think that Krukava's is the more minority view.
No, because she talks about it. She talks about how over the years, the people who are most concerned by this stuff are the people who are concerned with like philosophy and esoterica, and like it's more like the Destrians and like
Mhm.
not like every parish gray sword or gray shield or whatever. It's like more like just like the people who are like thinking themselves to death, essentially, who are concerned with it. And he like picks up on the stuff they used to be concerned about and uses it to drive home his point.
I
It makes
think
it sound minoritarian, and like it has been minoritarian for a while, and that it's only like these brainy guys that care about it.
I think it's very analogous to like real life religious schisms, right? Like because most of the time religious schisms are founded on these really esoteric ideas that are only really able to be dealt with by the thinkers of the religions, right? Like you have you have the early conflicts in Christianity about like, okay, what's the nature of our faith? Is Jesus of God or is he born of God? Right, and that produces like one of the really big schisms in Christianity. Most people probably don't actually understand what the arguments are there. But at the same time, you had a lot of very passionate people on both sides willing to follow both factions, because even if you don't have like a super grounded logical understanding, you can have an intuitive understanding of like the possible contradictions and wanting to resolve those. You know?
Mm.
So I think that what happened with the Greyhelms here is that they sensed that there is a contradiction in the religion as it's currently stated, and they're just trying not to think about it. They follow Kurkava because she's the mortal sword, she's the one they follow. But when Tanakalian comes out, they're convinced by his arguments because he makes a more coherent case grounded in the religion, whereas Kurkava's vision of it is more aspirational, and she's kind of also taken off guard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but the other problem is that like you have these cults to these war gods
Mhm.
that often are either operating in mercenary outfits or in like military outfits,
Mhm.
like the Fenner cult in the Falaran like Legion of the Malazan Empire that Gessler tried to start, and then you have like the Gray Shields,
Yep.
and
Grey
the
Swords.
wait, Gray Swords is which one? Is that
Grey
this one?
Swords is the Fenrir cult,
Yeah,
later
Gray
converted to
Swords.
Toggen Vandere,
Right, right, right,
and
right.
these
Okay.
are the Grey Helms.
And they have they, they've always done this mercenary thing, and they didn't seem very concerned, like what does the boar of Fenner care about whether or not Kapustan is liberated? You know what I mean? Like it seems like it's a long-standing thing that they're just like, war, we do the war,
They do the war.
you know, we take the contract and we do the war and that's it. And now
Yeah.
he's trying to make it more like, no, we do the religion. That's the more important thing.
So, right. I think this speaks to like one of the differences between the Grey Swords and the Grey Helms. Like they have some sections here where they think about, oh, this is what set Fenner apart from Trake, and what set Fenner apart from the wolves, right? Like the wolves haven't been ascendants for like in ascendancy for a very long time. They had their worshippers, the parish, for like a long time, but they weren't the gods of war. It was Fenner, and Fenner is has his cults have had time to kind of reconcile themselves to these weird things. But since the wolves have been sidelined for so long, they didn't have the chance to kind of mature in this way. And we do know based on these paragraphs, like the wolves are on Tanakalian's side and not Krukava's, right? We get that through Sea Talk. The wolves are Sea Talk, and I think Sister Equity. The wolves are actually allied with the Four Curl Sail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Despite the fact that the Grey Helms, they don't have a Destrian right now. They don't have someone who can tell them that. They probably
Right.
get some level of like godly osmosis. I don't know. The sentiments of the wolves kind of seep through, but not
I mean,
clearly.
and it makes sense because the dichotomy that Tanakalian like draws up is nature versus humans.
Mhm.
right? And wolves represent nature.
Yeah. And then there's the dialogues like, oh, humans and nature aren't actually opposites,
Yeah,
and the
later
damage,
on,
yeah,
it's
damage that
actually the
humans do to
thing.
nature is actually just
Damage
damage
to
doing to
themselves.
themselves because they can't be fundamentally separated because that's an insane thing. Humans can't own nature, and they're not like an
Right.
entirely separate thing. But contradictions.
Yes.
I got into a big argument about that recently.
Oh, excellent.
Somebody posted a meme of Karl Marx, and it said, "All wealth comes from labor." So just jot that down. And I was like, actually, Marx made fun of that because all wealth comes from nature. He didn't agree with that, and they
Mhm.
like put me on blast for saying that. They were just like, "Oh, you want me to explain all this stuff in a meme?" Blah 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 blah. And I was like, just change the word wealth to value. Like it's not complicated. You're making me out like I'm just being this like stickler, and like you would need to like put 5 paragraphs in a meme to get across this concept, and it's like one word change, and you would have something he actually said instead of something he made fun of people for saying. So-
Nothing more classic than Marxists arguing over precise meanings of what the precise meanings of Marx, right?
Oh.
he literally made fun of it. So
I
like,
no, like I think you're in the right there. It's just, like this is what Marxists do. They argue over what Marx said and what he didn't say and what he might have meant and what he didn't mean when he said all these things.
but usually you get that with like weird ambiguous things that are
Yes.
like more in the weeds, and like this is like literally something where I have a quote of him.
And it happens on all levels, right?
He's like, no, it doesn't come from labor, it comes from nature, and human labor is a product of nature, and like he literally says what you just said,
Hmm.
and except about economics, right? So
I fully believe that you had this argument. It
yeah,
was probably frustrating.
it was frustrating because they all made me out like to be like I was just like being this anal douche, but I was like, I mean, like what if somebody like took something that you like openly made fun of in your works and attributed the thing you made fun of to you 200 years after your death? You know what I mean? Like it's like a
Oh
little,
yeah.
it's a little different than like a slight misinterpretation one way or the other on something. I don't know.
I mean, I always bring up like Fight Club and American Psycho, right? Like people coming out of those movies like, oh yeah, Tyler Durden is a cool dude. I want to be like Tyler Durden.
Oh yeah. I love all those movies and I hate people who love those movies because they all worship the
Yeah.
protagonists, and the protagonists are the bad guys, and it's like obvious in the narrative that the protagonists are the bad guys.
Yeah, or like, yeah, people come out of American Psycho thinking that Patrick Bateman is a cool guy. It's like, how, like, the media literacy is dead. You
It's like
cannot have.
American Psycho, Fight Club, Scarface, you know,
Joker.
yeah, Wolf of Wall Street, Joker, etc. Yeah.
Taxi Driver.
Yeah, Taxi Driver, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those
Yep.
movies that I love.
They're really good movies. I really like Fight Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm finally to where I can watch Fight Club again because I'm like so removed from the
From the Dude
original,
Bros.
yeah, from the original like milieu I was in when I watched it. Because I was one of those people when I watched Fight Club. Like when I
Yeah.
was 12, I was like, "Oh, it's so cool," and I missed the point. And now I get the point, and it took me a while to like detox. And now I'm like, okay, I want to watch it again now. Now that I have,
Learning how to fight is a legitimately excellent thing. So if you take one thing from Fight Club, you can take that. Just don't be
I
bouncing
see.
people's heads off of pavement. Do it in a controlled environment,
I think learning defensive fighting is helpful.
or like competitions. You know, it's a fun
Sure.
sport.
I like different sports.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we talk about this glass desert?
Yes, it's not really in this section, but
Well, chapter 10, it mentions basically, I guess, the creation of
yeah,
the
they're like
glass
someone killed a
desert.
god here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, is this what is it partially kind of what's causing Byrne to be sick? Or is this the outcome of her being sick?
Um, this is the outcome of some unimaginably catastrophic event, cataclysmic event, one might even say. What's
Oh,
causing Byrne to be sick is the presence of the crippled god on and in
yeah,
her, and like his foreign body is
a virus,
infecting her.
basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but she doesn't have anything to do with the glass
They make
desert?
reference to like when it happened, it probably like was damaging to her. She might
Yeah.
have
Okay.
rolled over in her sleep, or I forget the words they
Right,
use.
right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah.
I see.
And magic being life and all magic being dead here, like that is definitely significant. Like this is like a dead patch on Burn, but it's not like an infection that's spreading.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to be clear, the land of Kalor is Jakaruku? What
That
was that?
that was like his capital place.
Okay.
Well, okay, his capital place was swept away in the Imperial War, but Jakaruku is the largest remnant of ruins of his empire, I believe.
And that was where he like set fire to everything?
If it was him, well, okay, no, the set fire to everything. That's what was swept into the Imperial Warren.
Okay.
But yeah, the land of Jakaruku is probably close to that. The land of Jakaruku is where the thaumaturgs that called down the crippled god reside.
Right. But Kalance is like not in the same place.
Yeah, it's like a different continent, but it was still very ravaged by the crippled god's fall. It's where the
Okay.
biggest parts of him fell.
So could it be that when he fell, he accidentally killed a god and that's what caused the glass desert?
I thought that I figured it was the Forkroll sales god.
Ah.
Yeah, this is something that we get more of in the next couple books.
Okay.
Yeah, there is more here. I'll say the nature of the glass desert is explored further.
Yes.
By the way, if you want to see what life under the thaumaturgs is like on Jakaruku, because they're still in charge.
Yeah,
Blood and Bone is the book
Yeah,
to read.
it's so. I love Blood and Bone. Words cannot express the. I want more Blood and Bone style stuff out of Esselmont. I want more thaumaturgs. The thaumaturgs are such an interesting little.
Huh.
They're really cool. It's a cool setting for sure. I definitely prefer his prequel stuff to the novels of the Malazan.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm still reading Forge of the High Mage. I just had to take a break and read that Fae romance stuff. But Forge of the High Mage is some of the best Malazan I've ever read.
Nice.
It's really good.
I will one day get to Path to Ascendancy. It's been very encouraging to hear the stuff about Forge of the High Mage because Kellenved's Reach was not very well received.
But the thing is that it's not well received, not because it's bad, but because like he was too constrained. Like
totally fair.
It needed to be bigger. It needed to be more of
Mhm.
a sprawl, and it was just too tight and too constrained, and there was just like not enough. It was like a bunch of cool stuff and not enough of any of it.
Was he just playing too safe?
Yeah, like it seemed like he really took the criticisms about how big and unwieldy
Okay.
these books are, too far in the other direction,
see.
I can see that.
like it was the opposite of the Return of the Crimson Guard, which is too much of everything. A lot of really cool stuff and too much of them all. This is the opposite. A lot of cool stuff and not enough of any.
I quite like Return of the Crimson Guard, but it's not something I look forward to rereading because like there's all this stuff mostly in the first half that I'm just like, eh. And then the second half is I think amazing.
Although Kellenved's Reach has a really cool ending. So I don't know. Like
That's good.
and some of my favorite stuff about the Talani Mass and like how that all came about, how he came to be like in charge of the Talani Mass. It's in there. So there's like some really good stuff.
Wow, we're doing a lot of digressions today. Yes, Panda, we can talk about whatever you want right
Because
now.
Hurin's not here to keep us on track.
Yeah.
And Panda's not holding the reins tight enough.
You want me to? I can crack it.
I think we're fine to do. I don't know. I'm fine with the digressions, but
So in chapter 10, we get a bit of Aaronix. Aaronect?
Yeah.
How do you say her?
Yeah, that's it.
Aranict. Yeah.
Aaronect?
Or Aranict. I don't know. Who cares?
Aaronect. So she mentions how difficult it was to witness the bone hunters just following Tavor. The section says she was a singular woman, was Tavor Paran. They could all see that. They had all witnessed the terrible majesty of her will, and her soldiers followed. That had been for Aaronect the hardest thing to witness. The squads fell in, the companies formed up, and and as they marched past Prince Briss, they offered him a sharp, perfect salute, as if on a parade ground, eyes hidden in the shadow of their helms, that closed fist on the chest, expressions chiseled from stone. Gods, I will never forget that, any of it. Those faces, horrifying in their emptiness, those soldiers, veterans of something far beyond battles, far beyond shields locked and swords bared, beyond even the screams of dying comrades and the desolation of loss, veterans of a lifetime of impossible decisions, of all that is unbearable and all that is without reconciliation. And um they do go on to talk about this in like the later books in these sections where the bone hunters and the bridge burners, like, if anything, they they would understand the crippled god the most out of all these different players because of just the amount of suffering that they
Hmm.
have experienced. And it's it is quite, I don't have the best words to describe it, but for me as a reader witnessing all of these events, all these emotions and the suffering and getting really attached to a lot of these characters and feeling pain when, something really bad happens to them. I guess this is what Erikson was doing, in that if you look at the crippled god and the pain that you've experienced just reading through and witnessing these events, can you imagine how much more pain he is in? And what are you going to do about it?
Hmm. Yeah, I do love these discussions in these books. Like again, like what is it that makes these people special? Why are they able to do what they do? Why are they following this woman? What makes her special? Like there's so
Yeah.
many really fantastic discussions that are being had from like all manner of angles here.
And
And
we do get some answers that we
mhm,
haven't gotten in many books to that last one you just said. Why are they
Like,
following her?
why?
yeah.
What? Why her? What's special about her? We finally get an answer to that question here.
Hmm.
Which I I get it, like, because, I think it was, I don't remember 100% who it was, but they said that they saw this light, this shiny thing in uh, um
Krukava.
Krukava.
Yeah. And their little therapy session.
Right. Like in her hands,
Yeah.
and that was compassion.
Yeah.
But that doesn't answer the question of why does Tavor have so much compassion? Like,
Mm.
what makes her the one to be able to do this and make this decision?
And another question I have, actually, that I don't remember if the book answers, is
Okay.
why? Like,
Right.
what? How did she figure it all out? How long has she known this is her mission for? And when did she figure out like this was what she wanted to do with her life? And
Right.
like how did she, like, was it like through studying the Malazan military stuff? Did she like keep going back further in history and study the fall and the chainings? Or like what made her realize like, oh, this guy Kamensaw, this is the one
Right.
that we need to focus on, and he's the one who I need to save.
I
Um,
think that's an excellent discussion to have for in the next episode because I think or the next episode or the last episode because in my opinion we get the answers we need
Okay.
or enough
okay,
stuff to
I just
go
don't
on to
remember them.
yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited to have that conversation. I can't offer my thoughts on it right now because
Hmm.
Fair. Fair.
yeah. But the series in a large part is about trying to figure that question out, I think.
Mm. It better not be something super cheesy, like because she made the choice to do so.
Oh, I don't think that's
Okay.
I don't think the answer is cheesy. Is what I
Okay,
will say.
cool.
Um, Speaking of cheesy,
Yeah.
or maybe cliche is a better word. I really like the beginning of this chapter. Bring this a little more down to earth, away from like the big things. The 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 breakdown of the dynamic between Stormy and Gessler. and like
Oh,
the fact
yeah.
that they like
Yeah.
are fighting with each other, and how like characters start to realize that it's like love,
Hmm.
that like all we're hearing is what they're saying out loud, and like what's in between and under it is like their love and their shared like traumas and their shared like
Yeah.
bond with each
As
other
you
coming through.
wish.
Yeah, it's very wow. It is a nice kind of subversion of the stereotypical like soldiers griping at each other.
Yeah.
You know,
I like the explanation that they are trying so freaking hard to hang on to their humanity.
yeah,
That was a really moving part to me this
yes,
Yeah.
time around. It's like, because we do see how all of these gods, when they ascend, they lose it, right? Like Cotillion is the best exploration of this, right? He had fully lost it before he possessed Story, and Story and Gessler, they have like an intuitive understanding. If we ascend, that's what's going to happen. We're going to lose a significant chunk of ourselves. So they've made this kind of implicit decision. No, we're not doing that.
In a way, like, to make it tangible for the real world, I think a lot of parallels to this is fame. Like,
Hmm.
people can have humble beginnings and then they become more successful and they, whether through luck or hard work or whatever, right? They achieve this like status that very few people have and a lot of people envy. And if you allow yourself to, um, it's very easy to lose that connection to everyone else. And here it's like they know what's happening and they're trying very hard to not lose that connection.
Hmm.
So
Speaking of losing your humanity, and when did all of this start? So now that I brought us back down to the earth, I'm gonna bring us back up to the big thing and zoom out again. Because there's another couple of characters that I don't understand, even with reading the prequels and everything. At what point did they get on board to Vor's mission? And it's Kellenved and Dancer. Like, did they know that they wanted to try to like snatch the crippled god from all of the other gods and free him instead of like continuing to feed on his power like the other gods are before they ascended? Because that's like not necessarily the impression I get of their characters from uh
I don't think so.
people talking about them back then, from what I have seen of them back then through Esselmon stuff in both Knight of Knives and Path to Ascendancy. Like, it doesn't seem like they had any idea that that's what they wanted to do in the first place, but now they're on board with it. And why are they doing that if they don't have their humanity anymore? Is there
I have a
like a
theory.
like a more moral philosophy behind it that transcends their humanity, or like why why are
I
they
think
on
it's
everyone's
something,
side?
well, at least for Shadowthrone, I think it's something much simpler. So, and I just came up with this, so it's probably like really off. But my theory is that when they were ascending, no, this was not like part of the plan. I think they were ascending for other reasons, partly probably like because we want to prove that we can. And once they did, and they had a better understanding of what the game was like at that level, and they've observed these stupidity and squabbles and like how these gods interact with humans. They're like, you know what? These people, meaning the gods, take themselves too seriously. What's something that they all really want? What if we just took it out from under them?
Yeah, that's interesting. There's another couple of things here. I think somebody alluded to it in either this book or the previous book. And it's the idea that all the other new gods, not the elders, will be weakened um, relative to them.
Mm.
So they'll be in a better position relatively after the crippled god is
But like,
not
why
being fed
though?
on, because the major power source for the other gods would be gone. So instead of like
But
getting
they're
in
like,
on
what is
that,
their power source? Why is it that they're so different?
mm, yeah, I don't know. Well, because they haven't been feeding on the crippled god's power for thousands and thousands of
Potentially.
years. Like, they're new. And then the other thing is their connection to the Azath.
Yeah.
And the Azath may be sympathetic to this mission.
Once again, I have thoughts on this.
That you
And you're
cannot
They
not
share.
going to tell us.
they need to wait. I will say that yes, I think the time when the Azeth House was very transformative for them, and I have guesses on how exactly it was transformative, but those are gonna wait. And I think it's either in House of Chains or Bone Hunters. Someone theorizes that totally forgot who that Shadow Throne Cotillion. Their plan is to have just a bunch of empty thrones, right? They're going to
Right.
have all these thrones and then they're not going to let anyone claim them.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a totally correct guess. I
Uh-huh.
also think that there's a lot of merit to it. But
I think it's something along the right lines.
like in our 8 hour long book 7 chapter, book 7, the Crippled God discussion, I will try and go over my thoughts on what exactly they're doing and why.
Okay, sounds good. I think at that point we're just gonna have to schedule a whole day. Like we have to just
Maybe
clear our
like
schedules.
here and you're gonna have to wake up at midnight and
Yeah.
we're just gonna go where everyone's gonna have to be okay with like a 6 hour long discussion. We can have breaks for snacks.
Maybe do it live stream
Maybe it should
style.
be two. Maybe it should be more than one discussion, not 6 hours. Um, is Kellenved more human than some of the other gods because of his madness? Is another question. But
I think that we can see a reflection of Kalinved and Tehol.
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they're the same characters, but they're channeling the same energy, I think.
What about Puss?
Uh I do like Pust is not Pust is an entirely selfish character. I don't think that Kellenved is entirely selfish, but I think he has selfish impulses,
You know,
like
maybe
Pust does.
he did the thing where he like took the majority of his selfishness and like
Just deposited in Pust.
squirreled it away in Puss.
I like that thought, you know? It's like
Yeah.
his evil alter ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that's just the aspects of Shadowthrone that Pust, latched onto.
Like yeah, so like like a Shadow Throne, like he is like hiding himself behind like 1,000 different mirrors, and yeah, like the House of Shadow, that what all the mortal worshippers get, they get like one layer deep. It's like, okay, he's not this crazy maniacal idiot. There's actually like some real genius behind there. But then they think, oh, he's just like a conniving ne'er do well, and I'll
Mhm.
worship that part of it and be influenced by that. I could see that.
Bringing it back to Erinix and Briss. So they were having this conversation about a lot of things and like, the bone hunters, etc. They also had a conversation about sin.
Mm,
Because I think it was Briss said the Destrian spoke of fire, meaning Technicalian spoke of fire.
Thanakalian. Yeah.
Tanakalian. Um, and then they were talking about the girl Sin. Fire at its most destructive, at its most senseless, she could have burned us all to ash and given it not a moment's thought. When you hold such power inside you, it burns away all that is human. You feel nothing. But Briss, you don't understand. The adjunct wants Sin with them, meaning with Gessler and Stormy, as far away from her as possible. I don't think Tavor would. And then Aaron's like, no, 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 no. That wasn't her reason, Briss. It's Gessler and Stormy. Those two men have walked in the hold of fire, in what the sages of the First Empire called Telas. Tavora wants Sin with them because no one else can stand against that child. No one else could hope to survive her power. For when Sin awakens that power, as Kalith said, there will be fire. Oh, so it wasn't Tanakalian, it was Kalith who mentioned
Hmm.
the fire. Da, 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 da. And then this is when they talk about Gessler and Stormy holding on to their humanity. But then they talk about Grub, where he stands beside Sin like her conscience made manifest. It is truly outside her now. She could push it away. She could crush the life from it. I don't know why she hasn't already. And if we think back to like Dust of Dreams, where Sin is trying to actually keep Grub all to herself. This part makes more sense,
Hmm.
where it's like maybe she does recognize like Grub is her conscience and she needs to hold on to it and protect that as much as she can, because if Grub is taken away from her, then she would lose it. Like, it's the last connection she has to people because she's lost everything,
Mm-hmm.
all the people that she cared about.
Yeah, and I think Grub is her connection, right? And like they're framing it like entirely selfish terms and like entirely unfriendly to Sin terms. I think obviously I've been saying this for many books now. I think they're being unfair to Sin. I don't think
Sure.
they're trying to see things through her eyes. But yeah, like she thinks of Grub as her virgin of death, right? Or like
Hmm.
the virgin that she's trying to protect. And the only way she knows how to do that is to separate him from the entire world, because all the world has been to Sin is awful. Like
Hmm.
that's all she's had from it. So I think there is a level of actual care that Sin has for him that's being twisted by all of her baggage. I also feel really bad for her because she definitely senses how people feel about her. And like Kalieth is like, "Oh, I'm so happy, glad you guys are with us, Gessler and Stormy and Grub."
Yeah.
And then Gessler's like, "Not Sin. Nobody likes Sin. Poor Sin, right?"
I am more sympathetic to her now. Not gonna lie.
Good, good. More Sin sympathizers, Sin
But
stands.
also, just the fact that her name is named Sin doesn't really help her as a
No,
character, you know?
no, it doesn't. Yeah, yeah. Names actually do have a determining effect on your personality. That's a thing.
Yeah. Okay, where are we?
We're still in chapter 10. Do we want to have a conversation about Grukava's discussion with Spax and Aberstal?
We
Talks about what
can.
she wants for the Grey Helms. It's fine. Well, actually, I think we do have to mention that this is where the point Steve makes about contradiction being a good thing actually is
Mm.
made. I don't know if I agree with this point. I kind of have a tough time swallowing it because I am a very logical thinker. And he's kind of like, well, logic is overrated. And, like you kind of can just throw it out and contradictions resolve themselves or they don't. And it doesn't really matter. And it's an interesting idea.
I don't think it's this part.
You might be right.
I think it's a later chapter. Because in this part they're really talking about like Krugava, like why are you so adamant to be allied with Tabor?
Adjunct. Yeah.
Right? And Krugava talks about the dreams that the Senescals have, and that's where we find out about, she sees Tavor having this power in her
Mhm.
hands, and it turns out to be compassion.
Yeah, and Krukava's initial aspirations, like they're so impossibly naive, right? Like she thought this was going to be the war to end all wars.
Yeah,
And obviously that's a ridiculous notion. There's not going to be any wars. Like there going to be wars as long as life exists, right?
yeah.
And so this
So
is this is I think a key reason why she loses the Greyhounds.
there is a part here where, and it's mentioned multiple times later, about how Tavor turned Krukava away.
Hmm.
And I don't think Tavor did, though.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, she didn't. Krukava thought she did.
I think
Okay.
Krukava's just got her own stuff. I think that somebody with Krukava's same goals and a better psychological makeup and ideology could have probably won out.
Worked it out.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, because I thought it was pretty clear, like, no, Tavor didn't turn you away. She just gave you a different mission, a different goal.
Yeah.
Because they had to divide and conquer.
Yeah, and like it was like an incredible expression of trust on the part of Tavor, saying like, "I can trust you to go away and do this thing for me."
Right.
That's a really important thing. Yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
this is I think why a lot of Tanakalian's criticisms of Krukava personally, well, I think they're a mix of projection and accurate. I think like Krukava is not super interested in glory, but she
Hmm.
clearly is interested in making herself a martyr. I
Yeah.
think, and she finds those notions interesting, seductive, and she really had this romantic ideal not romantic as in like a love sense, but
Yeah.
like romantic is like a high ideal of like her and Adjunct Tavor against the world, changing
Right.
things one god at a time. And then when when she got turned away and when it was revealed Tavor actually wants to free the Crippled God, she kind of has a crisis here.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Chapter 11.
Yeah. Chapter 11. The Bone Hunters begin their journey in the Glass Desert, prompting discussions on loyalty and giving Pores a chance to show his quality.
Oh my goodness.
That was. Are you on the side of Pores now, Panda? You better be.
I mean, I'm not against Pores, but I still think he's annoying. In this instance, he's doing something good, but
Mhm. Oh yeah, like he's definitely like a fussy kind
yeah.
of nitpicky kind of annoying guy. But this is where he excels. He excels at being like a tight-fisted little quartermaster who's actually loyal.
Quartermaster, master sergeant, whatever,
Yeah.
however many titles. I miss the Ravens. I want. Okay, I think one of my qualms about reading the series is that the beginning books of the series, like, I felt so strongly about, like, positively,
hmm
because they were my first experience with the series and with what Erikson could do with storytelling. And he made me care a lot about characters in the first 3 books. And then after that, the series just is, like, very different.
hmm
It's gotten a lot more, like, philosophical, a lot more, like, in people's heads, which I appreciate to a certain degree because I get it. I get why he's written it that way, but I also miss the, like, action and, like, quick pacing and just the exploration of the worlds and really, you know, fun, I guess, aspects of Malazan. And
hmm
now they're so spread out. These, like, moments of fun are just so spread out, and he keeps dropping in these, like, crumbs from the beginning of the series, and that just makes me, like, nostalgic
hmm
for those books. So,
I
anyway.
think you'll find that if you go back to the first couple books, there is just as much philosophy and introspection as there is in these books. It may be true that the crumbs of lightheartedness are a little more spread out because we're in
Yeah.
the dire last moments. But man, the chain of dogs is a
Okay,
slog.
that's true. I remember with Duiker, like, there was a lot of but it was like there were fewer characters that were doing that, whereas now it's like every character you meet, basically, it's like, let's see what they're thinking inside, you know?
Yeah, Steve has talked about this. Like it was a deliberate decision he made
Yeah,
in the back half of the series to transition things from eh, to being less action focused.
right.
I think that's
Okay.
the main distinction that's happened. He's emphasized action a lot less. And yeah, I have mixed feelings about it as well. I really like these books. I said it in a episode or 2 or 3 ago. I think he could do to let the action speak for itself more
Mhm.
and not have characters lay things out as much as they do. Um,
Maybe I just want an abbreviated version, you
like
know?
abridged Malazan.
Yeah.
No, you didn't pay me to read that.
I can see both sides of the argument,
I would
and
like the graphic novel version, please. Please
I
don't
would
hate
I
me.
would love I would love a graphic novel of Malazan. That would be so excellent. There definitely is a world where Steve is more conscious of market forces, let's say,
Mm.
and leans into the more popular aspects of his writing and produces like a really tight, cohesive, fun series to read that also has like it's still elevated fantasy, but not to this level. And I think that would be a very fun series to read. I don't think I would love the series as much as I do presently, but I think it would sell like infinite copies.
Do you think that he will only write Malazan things from now on? Like,
No,
No,
no, he's written other things. Yeah,
yeah.
he
yeah.
wrote a sci-fi series. He
But
wrote
is that like he's still actively writing it?
Is he done with the Wolful Child series, or is it
I don't
finished?
remember. He also published Rejoice, A Knife to the Heart, which
Well,
did
I
not
know he
sell
has
well.
other
Mhm.
works, but I mean like his current active writing career and until,
His aspirations. He wants to write more non-Malazan stuff. I think once he's done with Carcanus and Witness, then he's done with Malazan. Besides maybe
okay.
like novellas,
Okay.
but yeah, he's
He
getting up there
doesn't
in age.
doesn't
So
he have another project he's working on too? Like
he
a
We
has
little.
haven't
another project. Yes. Well,
but we
he has
haven't
a
really
few projects.
heard
Yeah,
of.
there's like a mystery thing he's doing with Cam, and but I do believe that he does have intentions to write more non-Malazan stuff. Like he has this book on writing that's going to be like a compiled
Oh, right,
series of
right. Okay.
essays plus other things that he's publishing, obviously. And
Yes.
I definitely think that he wants to write more sci-fi and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, that was a tangent.
How dare you?
I know. Okay.
Speaking of
What?
fun sections, I really like the joke reverse joke with Pors' assistant. He gets him to write down
Oh
this like
my gosh.
long message to Kindly, and he's like, okay, now read it back to me. He's like, need to meet now, basically,
Yeah.
and
Secret
it's like,
meeting.
oh, haha, that this is exactly what Pors wanted. He just wants to. And then it turns out that the guy actually had memorized the entire thing and just recited it back to him
Yes.
because the wax tablet had melted.
Okay, can I just say that um okay, listeners, please don't hate me. So, I know that Pratchett is like held up as this like very funny author, Discworld has these like long building jokes and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've read two Discworld books so far, plus Good Omens. I'm gonna leave Good Omens out of this because I did enjoy that one. But the Discworld books I've read so far, I'm like, it's okay.
Which ones?
Color of Magic and
We Free
We
Men.
Free Men,
Yeah.
which I know they're not the best examples, so I will continue to read it. But as of now, I feel like Pratchett doesn't compare to Erikson in terms of like these jokes, like bringing it back and really like nailing the punchline.
Yeah, and I only tried Color of Magic so far, and like one other, and I had the same experience. I was like, oh wow, this sounds like he's trying really hard to be funny, and it's just not working.
And it's not that like I don't like British humor because I do.
No, I
Um,
do too. I just don't like Pratchett's humor that I've
I
read,
just
and
I
I
haven't
understand a lot of it. I haven't read
Yeah,
all.
and I haven't like really read his like pinnacle example of where he does it really well. So granted, I haven't read that, but here I've read a lot of Erickson's and it's like he does it really well.
Erikson
Um,
has been funny since book one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, the the biggest slog I think of getting into Erikson is the first 4 chapters of Gardens of the Moon before the Darugistan sections, and after that, it's funny and it just goes. And I think they're hilarious books. And you haven't even read his comedy series. The
Oh
Bockling
yeah, no, I
Ghost
haven't.
novels are and those actually kind of hit me like Pratchett at first. Like I was like, he's trying too hard. It's not that funny." And then the more of them I read, the funnier they get. But there's a
Okay.
lot less of them than there are Pratchett's books, so that didn't take as long. and yeah, they are hilarious
Okay.
once you get going. Um, yeah.
In the interest of not getting burned at the stake by the listeners, I do have to unfortunately point out that yeah, you guys are wrong about Pratchett. Sorry. Um,
I admit that I am very likely very wrong and I will continue to read
yeah.
Pratchett,
I mean, the real answer is like yes, it is fine if he doesn't work for you. The thing I like about Pratchett is that his humor has like real bite to it in the books that I've liked from him.
Okay.
I said this before. Neil Gaiman has said, and Neil Gaiman being a very close friend of the man and has co-written books on, that Pratchett wrote from a place of anger. And when we asked
Okay.
Steve about this, he also responded like, yeah, yes, he also writes from a place of anger. And I think anger is a fantastic well to draw actually good humor from, because I think a lot of the very best humor comes from being angry about things in the world. Right? Like there's like the social commentary jokes that you can have from really funny
Yeah.
communities. Like they're angry about something and they're making fun of it viciously because of it, right?
Mhm.
And I think you can kind of see a lot of that in in Malazan. Pratchett does it very well when he lambasts, whatever he's lambasting at the time, I think.
Okay. Got it. Maybe that's what we'll do after we finish Malazan is the four of us can read a
Read
Discworld
it.
book
I'm
and then
down.
discuss it.
Maybe one that is funny without having to read 16 other books
Yes,
for.
exactly.
Well, like the Discworld, they're like sub-series within Discworlds that you
Yes.
can start on. Like none of them require that you have read all the previous Discworld books to get the humor of.
Preferably something that's more standalone than like in a sub-series.
Yeah. I will also just say, yeah, Malazan is like Steven Erikson is like he really gets humor. I laugh at his jokes almost all the time. Even the ones that a lot of people don't find funny, like in Midnight Tides, all of the very crude sex jokes that are made. I
I
find
think
them
they're
funny.
hilarious.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So like reading his, potty humor and like 13-year-old boy humor
hmm
and like quote unquote meeting him as close as we can meet him in real life, does that track?
Yes. 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 And like especially because we know that these books were inspired by an RPG campaign. Like I, this
I
is
know, but
this is the kind of shenanigans you get up to when you're like a dungeon master and you're trying to make things funny for your characters. Like, yes, you walk into a brothel. There are penises on the wall. There are penises on the banister.
I think next time we talk to Steve, it'll just be like not talking about anything specific Malazan or like at least a portion of it. And it's just like stupid stuff. Because
Yeah,
I just have this dis disassociation of like
serious
serious
Steve.
Steve and
Yeah,
then like this kind of humor Steve. I know he can be funny, obviously, but it's just like
like
ah.
he puts on his like professor coat for the interviews because he wants to. He's giving like a good defense of his series, and I absolutely agree with you. We should try and draw the fun, playful Steve out because
Ash, have you read a Crackspot Trail?
no,
Do you know the premise?
yeah, I know that AP is in it, and that's exciting.
AP is in it, but
And like, there's a long like a commentary about literary criticism.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay. The premise of Crackpot Trail is that there are all of these like paladins on a pilgrimage to a city where all of these artists also going to go to this like artist of the century contest that happens every year. So it's artist of the century, but it's once a year.
yeah. When I think of Steve, like the character that I think resembles Steve most by far is like Shadow Throne.
Really?
Yes. I can totally see him playing Shadow Throne for campaigns and just like coming up with these
Huh.
justifications and there's like these hidden layers because as we know, Steve is an impossible RPG player to corral in any sense. He just like you throw challenges at him, he just kind of rips them apart. And Shadow Throne's like he's that in the world of Malazan, just doing that stuff. Like, if you'll remember, like it might have been in our first interview with Steve. I had mentioned that I was starting my own RPG campaign. He's like, if you have illusion magic, go wild with illusion magic and mess with your
Yes,
players' heads.
that is
Make
true.
drive them crazy. Um, like he's just like a little chaos imp imprisoned in the body of a respectable man.
Oh my goodness. I think part of it is just like my own uh preconceptions of
Mhm,
like what kind of person would write this kind of series,
mhm.
and be able to like go so deep and like be able to portray humanity so well and from all sorts of different angles. Um, like that kind of person is, I don't know, like a genius kind of person. And yet he's as human, if not more so, than most people
Yeah.
with his kind of humor. So
hmm
anyway,
I really appreciate how he doesn't seem particularly inclined to apologize for any of it. I really respect that.
no. I kind of just wish like we had more glimpse of what he was like as a kid.
Oh, yeah. That would be really interesting.
Anyway, so I did make a note here because this is where, Kindly and the Stara Egil, like they had that conversation with Tavor and basically the troops are running out of water, right? And nobody really believes that they're actually going to be able to make it through the desert. And the commanders basically have this meeting with Tavor, and Tavor is saying, no, we're going to continue. We're going to hold our pace and actually increase our pace and um, all of this stuff. Which actually, this was a really insightful scene,
Mm-hmm.
at least in the sense that we got to see more of how well Tavor is as a leader, like how good she is as a leader in true Malazan style, right? Like she let them voice their opinions and then made the decision of which ones to execute, right? Kindly go do exactly what you said, right? Like we don't need the armor smith or whatever anymore, etc. And but she was also firm, like we are going to continue, right? And it was it was very nice to see, like we do see that, griping about like why are we doing this, da 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 da, all that, but from like the the leader perspective of these leaders have a decision to make. Do they actually continue and follow? But then they also are contending with, how do I communicate this to my subordinates? And Lasara is just like, you know what? The best thing you can do, don't say anything. And you actually show. You show by standing with Tavor and continuing to go with her. And it's just, that's such good portrayal
Mm-hmm.
um of what could be what could make a really good leader. And in this case, it's actions speak louder than words. Like what can you really say? Yes, I know we're most likely not going to make it. Our chances of making it is very little, but I'm telling you to go along with it. Rather than saying that, it's like, you know what, I am making the decision to follow our leader
Mm-hmm.
and take that for what you will.
Yeah, as I said, I don't have a quote. I'm gonna read out what Ruth Ann Good says to Kindly. I think it was Ruth Ann. Yeah, after he was like, "What? How dare she ask us to, as soldiers, to sympathize with our enemy, to let down our guard and really feel things?"
Oh yes.
He says, "You still don't get it. None of you. Listen. We don't dare look across into the eyes of a suffering God, but kindly she dares. You ask for more from her? God's below. What more can she give? She'll feel all the compassion none of you can afford to feel. Behind that cold iron, she will feel what we can't." His eyes went flat on Kindly. "And you asked for more."
Yeah.
Ugh, that's a
You,
chills
you
quote
don't read
right
the
there.
audiobook and it shows.
Yeah.
You don't
The
read the audiobook?
yeah,
Why?
because Ruth on Good's like, God's below. Like he's like got this
Ugh.
thick accent. You
Wait,
still
what?
yeah. Like, when you said it like so flat, I was like I heard his voice as the audiobook narrator does it in his head, like overlaid over it. I was just like, man.
Dissonance. Yeah.
Does that help? Does the audiobook do it justice?
I mean, those are the voices for me. There is a little dissonance with the characters from the first 3 books because of the other narrator, but
Okay.
my quick pen voices are so different that, like, if I'm listening to the later books, it if I'm reading out loud quick pen to my wife, it's that voice, and it's the other voice if I've been listening to the earlier books because 'cause they're so completely different.
Yeah,
I
I
see.
have not been feeling compelled to listen to the audiobooks for the Book of the Fallen, but I hear the one for The God Is Not Willing is fantastic. And I
Okay.
probably will pick up the audiobook for that just because I want to listen to her. Because she does Warhammer narrations as well. And
Oh, okay.
Warhammer is one of my other passions.
Both Ralph Lister and Michael Page are great narrators. I would say Lister is more difficult to listen to if you haven't read these books 1,000 times like you have.
Hmm.
Mm.
Well,
'Cause well
this
yeah.
is my first reread, right?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
my first time reading it was like in high school.
I don't think you would have trouble with Lister, but Lister, who does the first 3 books, uh, when you're new to the series, it's hard because he,
Hmm.
like, does not signal POV changes very well at all,
Interesting.
and it's rough if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Yep.
Bringing it back to Tavor.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. With Tavor, like, thank you for reading that section because that is a truly powerful section. I did think about, because we were talking about this before, like the bone hunters endured a lot of suffering. However, I don't consider them like worshippers of the crippled god, right? And the reason is because they don't dwell on their suffering. They haven't given up. I think if they did give up and they, just like in the desert, they're like, there is no hope. We can't do this. We've already suffered enough. We're still suffering, da 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 da, da," and become really, really bitter about it, they would become followers of the crippled god or worshippers of the crippled god.
So they all turned into ballistic.
Exactly. Actually, yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think Tavor knows that. And so she is actively like combating that. And like this woman, like this character is just like giving people hope without saying anything. Like she's not going tent to tent and like, shaking hands, patting people on the back or anything. She is just holding course. She has enough faith, although it is kind of wavering a bit, and she's just holding it all together and holding it all in. And like, I kind of get it. I don't really know exactly if this is what Erikson was going for with how he wrote Tavor, but with her silence, it's like she is letting her actions show rather than better than any words she could really say.
I think that's correct. And we see that through Keneb in Dust to Dreams when he has those thoughts to himself. What I say
Right.
is going to be idiotic. They already know
Exactly.
there's nothing to say. And Tavor knows this. Yeah.
Do we know where the Unbound are?
Where they are?
Yeah, are they like with the Bone Hunters right now, or did they like just come have a little chat with Tavor and then go somewhere?
I don't think we know. Yeah, we know that they came to the camp and she had a conversation with them though.
Yeah, but we haven't seen them since then, right?
Yep. But
And and that conversation didn't entail where they were gonna what they were gonna be doing next, right?
who knows?
Yeah.
I guess
You
that's it
know,
too.
and I'm supposed to know, and I forgot.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Like
I'm sure it'll come up.
like I should like it's very I'm sure it's clear to everyone and the listeners. I'm not a plot guy. Right? Like I think I am very grateful that you're here because you are like much more of a plot guy. You put the work into understanding what's actually going on. I have like I have a
Broad
working understanding of
strokes.
what happens in the series. Yeah, broad strokes. My concern is primarily with theme and to a lesser extent characters. So for me, that's what it's about. That's where my understanding stems from.
Right.
But
I'm
on the
like trying
plot
to
level,
figure out the whole war, you
yeah,
know?
exactly.
I care about the theme and the characters too, but I want to know where all the characters are and what their missions are and what they're doing and where they're going. And
This is like so. A lot of the times when you're asking these questions, like I have no clue, no clue. Sorry.
it's Erikson's fault, right? Because
Yeah,
he's written these books in such a way that if you lose track of what a character is doing, then later they're going to show up and it's going to be pivotal. And it's going
Yeah.
to be really obvious from what they were last doing when you last paid attention to them that this is
Yeah.
where they were going to end. You know what I mean? Like he like
Mhm.
Yes.
writes them to make you want to pay attention to the plot and to make you want to be like the Charlie meme,
Yes.
the Always Sunny meme with the big board, and he's
No,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like he writes them that way. So he's made me this way. It's his fault.
Well, and hilariously, maybe a contradictory nature, in his a contradictory nature, he doesn't care about the details all that much either. He's totally fine writing things one way, and then be like, wait, that doesn't work with the story we want to tell later, and just like kind of ignoring it. Nope, sorry.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
that's true. But he has made it kind of important where like character
Yes.
A that dropped off the map ends up at scene B,
Hmm.
Yes.
on several
Yes.
occasions. It's
Yeah,
mattered.
and
So it like gets you thinking about it.
I think a great example of this is a lot of there's a lot of stuff in House of Chains that he sets up, and the next book he gets to it, it's the God is not willing.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that anything is missing for him to pick up and God is not willing.
Yep.
Fair enough.
How does this guy's his brain,
I don't
man?
know. As we know, he doesn't have the notes. He doesn't reread. All he has is maps that he looks over. Bonkers.
Memories of Ice is a good example of this. Like where is
Agreed,
Moon
right?
Spawn
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the whole time, and then it comes up, you
Yep.
know.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yes, indeed. Um, bring it to the more like serious and somber moment where it's amongst the soldiers, right? Uh, somebody was talking to Bottle, and they were saying, "Oh, actually, before we get there, the exchange Ruthen had with what's her face?
Ferret Sort?
No,
Or Skinnero?
Skinnero.
Skinnero? I don't know.
Scannero. Basically, like he was telling her, I was going to desert,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it, it was really funny.
I
I
was
should
planning to
probably
kidnap you.
Yes, I should probably tell you I was considering leaving. Oh, not you, this army. Ruthen, I'm in this army. I planned on kidnapping you. I see, he sighed. Today, she, talking about Tavor, changed my mind. So, my love, we're in this till the bitter end. And then she goes, if that's a marriage proposal, I kind of like it. Um, that was fun. But then, on a more serious note, they were talking about Bottle was talking with somebody, and basically they were saying like, you know how much money like we are getting paid to do this?
Mm-hmm.
However, I haven't thought about my pay in months, right? Like, I'm not thinking about the cottage, not the tavern, not the, nice fishing boat or garden or whatever. And it's it really hit home like they're not doing it for money. They're doing it for something so much more. They're no longer just soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody says something's happened to us. That's all. The Bone Hunters. Maybe it was invading Lether. Maybe it was Malacity or even Yucatan. I don't know. Look at us. We're an army not thinking about loot. Why do you think Korik went and mocked Smiles here about charging for her piss? It's because no one cares about silver and gold or buying stinking estates or breeding horses or taking up sea trades. We're probably the only army in the world that doesn't. And this is exactly why this army has gone insane. I paraphrase that last part, but I really like that um, moment because all of this discussion, all of this like talk about the crossing the glass desert, it's like nobody sane would do this, right? And it's true. This army is not sane. Like they're not doing, at least on the surface, what is logical. So that's why they're the ones for the job.
Absolutely. And this is conversations like this are why I tend to rate the Bone Hunters higher than the Bridge Burners in my mind. Because, whether it's their fault or not, it's probably not their fault. The Bridge Burners never had causes like this to fight for. Bone Hunters do, and we get this level of why are we doing this? This is why we're doing this. This is why we're the kinds of people we are. And still we get all these sections of hilarious interactions between them and profound interactions between them and hilarious and profound interactions between them.
I
Like,
kind of disagree with you
yeah, go ahead.
because part of it is the Bone Hunters didn't really get a chance to have this.
The bridge
The
burners.
Bridge Runners.
sorry, the Bridge Burners didn't really have a chance, right? Because they were basically wiped out. Fiddler is the very last one.
Besides Quick Ben and Spindle and
Okay, fine.
Blends and Picker
Fid
Edge.
and NC.
well, Hedge kind of doesn't count.
Yeah, Hedge, like, they call him Dead Hedge for a very good reason. Yeah.
But like, okay, Fiddler is almost the very last one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Spiritually.
it's like but he is still here. I would like to think that if the rest of the bridge burners had this opportunity, they would be doing what Fiddler is doing.
Totally possible.
I also
Yeah.
think that it's not really fair to say that the bridge burners didn't have this. We didn't get to read the bridge burners having this.
Yeah, but like this gets into like like head canons and like alternate like contrafactuals. Like I'm talking about like for the series that is written, like the stuff that we actually get from both parties. This is why I like the Bone Hunters more.
Oh, like within the context of the 10 books.
Yeah, like within the context of like Malazan generally, I don't think the Bridge Burners show up in the outside of the Book of the Fallen. Yeah,
Not
do they?
much.
Not yeah.
It's very it's like there'll be like one or two. Not
Like they're
like
sort of in Knight of Knives, kind
But
of,
you know
yeah,
what?
right.
but like
You know what? You do have to give credit to the bridge burners in that they were, and even before the bridge burners, there wasn't like a previous version of them, right?
Mhm.
So it's like the bone hunters are building off of what the bridge burners had done and laid the foundation for.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And also off of the 7th and the 9th armies and
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
um
And Dasim Ultor's previous forces and
so but okay. So I get what you're saying there, Ash, but I did want to say that from what we do know, even within the 10 books of what the Bridge Burners did before the Siege of Pale, you have the conquest of 7 cities,
Mhm.
which like we see that before the Malazan took over, it was like this reactionary cesspool. Uh
yeah,
and basically still is. It's just like a powder keg of nastiness.
yeah. They
And they
did a
kind of like
benevolent colonialism.
yeah, right. And they
Quotes around the benevolent.
right. And where Whiskey Jack thought that that wouldn't be so benevolent, he helped prevent
Mhm.
the Malazan conquest,
Mhm.
and like, or at least like, cauterized it a bit, like, so there is that's in their past,
Yeah.
in the canon,
Sort of.
but
Yeah.
it's just we don't get to see it. We just hear about it.
Yeah, they are at that point soldiers doing their jobs though, right? Like they do it because they're getting paid for that, right? And like
Oh, I see
part of
what
the
you're
point of
saying.
this is like the bone hunters there's no really logical reason for them to be doing this, and they're trying to figure out why are we doing this, and we get all these juicy discussions around this and moments of like real humanity among them. And the bridge burners, like, for all that there was real decency among some of them, they still were like tools of the Malazan Empire, whereas the bone hunters are tools of like humanity itself. Like they got to have this like transcendental purpose to them
I see what you mean.
that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bridge burners don't have. And like part of this is definitely opportunity. Like who knows if you replace the bone hunters with the bridge burners, like what would happen, what the series would look like. It would look different, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they would rise to the occasion, but that's not the series that we have.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's fair.
And the reason
Mm.
why I say that Fiddler was the last one is because like the following section where who was talking to Hedge? Somebody was talking to Hedge, and Hedge was basically like griping about how Fiddler is treating him.
Wait, I actually never liked Fiddler in the first place, and then someone's
Yeah.
like, all the ones you like are dead conveniently. It's like, yeah, it's so much easier.
Yeah, but something that I think he finally understood about why Fiddler reacts to him the way that he does, it was how unfortunate. Did you like Whiskey Jack? We was the best of friends. And this is Hedge responding to that question. Plenty there to like basically, and both of us. Fid was the odd one out, come to think on it, and now Whiskey Jack rides among the dead. Tragic, Benedict. Okay, Benedict was the one that he was talking to. A damn shame. And you loved him deeply. So I did. But Fiddler is still alive. I. And you never really liked him. Just so. In fact, you love all the dead bridge burners. Of course I do. Just not the last one left alive. Hedge glared and then slapped the man on the side of the head. Why am I talking to you? You don't understand nothing. Off he marched up to where his company trudged. My reading of this exchange was hopefully Hedge finally gets it that, like, dude, Fiddler went through so much suffering because all these people that he cared about, they all died.
Hmm.
And Hedge had the, I guess, Hedge had the experience of going with the rest of the bridge burners and then the opportunity to come back,
Hmm.
right? Fiddler did not have that same release where he didn't get to escape all of the sadness and the like depression and feeling of guilt for surviving. And you just really see the difference in how they react to each other.
There's another read on what Benedict is saying here, and
Yeah.
it's that Hedge might have talked about Fiddler or talked about the other bridge burners the way he talks about Fiddler if they were alive.
Mm,
And that he really, well, a very cynical, misanthropic reading is that he didn't really love any of them until they died. But
I see.
that's not my reading. It's that he does love Fiddler just as much as he loves these other people, but he can admit it about the ones that are dead because he
Got
doesn't
it.
have to interact with them, and it's like a Gessler Stormy
Mm-hmm.
situation. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, and I think another part of it is that Fiddler has grown past who he was when he was in the Bridge Burners, and
Yeah.
Hedge has come back, and he expects everything to just go back to the way that was. You know, it's just Fiddler and Hedge again, dynamic duo, sappers of chaos against the world. But that's not who Fiddler is anymore. Like he's Sergeant,
right,
Captain Fiddler of the Bone Hunters. He's a
right.
Bone Hunter now. He's not a Bridge Burner anymore.
And furthermore, that's why he's claiming he never liked Fit.
Yes.
Because he's
Yeah.
not considered a bridge burner anymore, or doesn't see himself.
No, because he can't. He's not because he's not getting the relationship that he
Mm.
wanted
hmm
on coming back. So he's like retroactively
Oh, I see what you mean.
saying
I never
he
liked
never loved him.
Fiddler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
because
see. I see.
And this is another theme in the series. Like, you have to adapt to new circumstances, or you will be irrelevant and replaced, and everything will be awful. Fiddler is willing to
Yeah.
adapt, and Hedge is not. Hedge is stuck in the past. He's refusing. He's brought back the bridge burners,
But
quote unquote.
that makes sense, right? Because
hmm
Hedge didn't go through Egatan
Yep.
like the rest of the Bone Hunters, right? So he didn't have that transformative experience. I mean, he went through death, um, and that's a different experience. But also, I think maybe on some level, it's Fiddler had already processed that Hedge was dead,
hmm
and with Hedge coming back, he's like, I went through all this pain and now you're back, but what if you die again, right? Which,
hmm
most likely you will. I have to go through it again, you know? So,
Yeah, like Hedge, I I think that in many ways Hedge is still kind of dead. You know, he's
yeah,
not changing. He's not really. He doesn't.
he's
He doesn't seem to be really
frozen.
alive. He seems to be like kind of like a caricature of who he
Mm,
was before he died. To me.
yeah.
well, and it, in the manner of dead people in Malazan, once they're dead, all they do is bemoan
Yeah.
their
Yeah,
past
that's a good
life and
point.
how it was taken away from them, and
Yeah.
hmm
da, 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 and they're like harping on the past and kind of stuck in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why, among other characters, this is why when Hedge comes back, it's not. This is why death still has impact for me and Malazan, because when characters come back, for the most part, I think they're more akin to Hedge. You know, like
They're more of a
they're
show.
they're back, but yeah, they're not really back.
Yeah.
Like there are a couple of exceptions. I think Briss is kind of an exception, but I think it's a
Kellenved's
justified
an
exception.
exception.
Who?
Kellenved.
Oh, yeah.
Shadow Throne acts exactly like Wu does in the prequels. Like there's no change. He's the same character before and after ascending. He's
hmm
but yeah, for the most part, you're right. But there are
Yeah.
but yeah.
But I think it's also the consequences, like the reactions, the impacts that the death has on the people around
Yes.
them and also downstream.
hmm
That's where the real consequence is. Um, I do think we need to move on. So,
Honestly,
Chapter
I might
12.
need to move on to bed.
Yeah.
yeah, the last thing I'll say about this chapter is there is this conversation about um Hanavat and the
Oh,
sis
yeah.
daughter-in-law.
Just something. What's her face? Yeah.
Yes. And
Gall's daughter-in-law is now sleeping with him.
yes.
Yeah.
And how Hanavet is very understanding of this whole situation there's like a lot that we could unpack there, but I just don't think we have time.
Yeah, I guess the lesson there is don't presume to know what other people's relationships are like, and don't be performatively outraged on their behalf. Just
Yeah.
I really like one of the small bone hunter sections here where it's like Clasp talking to Saltlick,
Mm.
and it's like the conversation's like, okay, hey, we know that Fiddler had like this special group of people that he picked to be his
Oh
elite
yeah,
in group, and can we be part of that group? And Saltlick's like, this isn't a thing. Obviously, this is not a thing. But yeah, you're in. Yeah. Well,
sure.
welcome. Sure. If it makes you
Yay!
feel better. I think that was a really well executed scene.
Yeah,
And also, I like the urban Hellion stuff as well. Excellent.
those
Hellion is
images.
able to march while sleeping. That's a fantastic ability. I'm so jealous.
Mm.
Chapter 12. The Shake proves surprisingly adept at resisting the Leosin incursion. This, I think, we'll have far less to say about. Yeah?
Honestly, this was my least favorite chapter in this whole section.
Mm-hmm.
Leosin leaders overly confident. Somebody tried to talk him down, talk some sense into him. There was a lot of death. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I should give a shout out to chapter 9 when we see Yed and Derek eating the last lump of cheese that they had.
Oh yeah.
I think that was somewhat poignant.
There's no more cheese.
There's no
Oh
more. Yeah, now there is no more. But yeah, like this is. I appreciate what's being done here. It's not the most compelling to me,
no.
even as a Shake apologist.
If listeners are upset that we didn't spend much time on chapter 12, you could let us know what you would want us to discuss, and maybe we'll
Like,
talk about it later.
yeah, yeah. Like, okay, there's to shout out what's happening here. We're starting to get the glimpse of the formation of another new thing in the Shake and Lothari, and they're not breaking, and they should be breaking. And there are discussions here about why. I think it's done better with the Bone Hunters, but obviously there's resonance across both of them. Chapter 13.
Yeah.
Yes, nothing from Janeth. Yeah. Chapter 13. The Lothari pick up Precious Thimble, Ambibole, and Faint. Krukava sets off after the Bone Hunters.
Okay. What I do think is interesting from this section is the discussion about the wastelands and how it's waking up. I did think of this as people avoided the wastelands, right? Because it's called the wastelands, and people avoid it for good reason, and it was left undisturbed and basically starved for a long time. And basically I see it as in this like sleeping dormant state. However, now there is bunch of movement in the wasteland, and there's a lot of life and power and like all these things flowing through it, and therefore now the wasteland is waking up. And my guess is because Precious was saying the holds and the warrens were kind of severed here in the wastelands, but it seems like the next thing that's going to happen is the holds and the warrens will reconnect, and then my guess is that the mages will be able to access power again.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think this is an excellent demonstration of the metaphor of humans aspecting the power that's already there for their own, like their perceptions of how things are going and their own internal journeys have tangible effects upon the physical reality of the world. And yes, without life there is no magic, and magic is used to sustain and control life. And the spiritual journey that the bone hunters are going through on their way through the glass desert is a crucial part of reinvigorating the landscape and bringing life to where there wasn't life before. And if they weren't in a thematic sense, if they weren't going through what they're going through, like the suffering, the camaraderie, the love that they feel for one another, then this land would not be able to live again.
Anything else to say?
We get the hint that the Bull brothers, part of what makes them special is like they have like literal metal in their bones.
Yeah.
they've really been genetically engineered. The Jagged really did a number on them. and they're kind of like demonic, so there's probably some crossbreeding going on there too. Whack.
Whack indeed. Any last thoughts, Janice?
Esselmont better write all the way up to the pre-Gardens of the Moon Jinnabacken campaign so we get more Go Brother stuff. Give me the
Right?
Montwood campaign. Give me the Montwood campaign.
That sounds like such a horrifying and hilarious experience. You know, like he goes like full Vietnam War, but with the Malazan antics.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, I didn't expect him to go as far as he's done with Forge the High Mage. Like, I thought this was the book I would want to read, like, since Dead House Gates, and they would never write. That's Forge the High Mage, right? So if he's gonna go there, that means there's a chance he'll take us to the Montwood campaign.
That
Why don't we
sounds
just
nice.
ask him?
Ask Esselmont if he'll
Yeah.
write it.
Yeah.
I would
Or
love to. I don't know how to get a hold of him.
Through AP probably.
yeah, AP can.
in a maybe distant future, we will be talking about Elsamon stuff here, I'm sure.
It'll be
And
2024.
like more than that, I think, like 2035, is when we'll get old man Esselmont on, and he'll have already published all these
Wait,
books.
what? Nah. At the
The best
rate that
part
you guys
about
are going.
Esselmont books is they don't require 4 discussions per book.
Yeah.
This is true. Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm committing to doing all of the Malazan books. That is not what I'm saying.
I don't think you would. As I've said, I don't think you would enjoy Carcanus, and I like there are books in the extended universe that I think you would really enjoy,
Cool.
but I think there are also ones that you would not enjoy and just don't need to read.
Okay.
I
Anything
love
else?
Carcanus.
I love yes, like I think Carcanus is
We
fantastic.
get it. We
But
get it.
I just don't think Carcanus is like all of the problems you have with like the introspection and the philosophizing and the thought over action, like magnified 100-fold in Carcanus. Like
It's
Carcanus
not that
almost
I
doesn't
don't.
have action at all.
It's
Okay,
not that I don't like it. Go ahead.
but book 1 is more like that, and it's way shorter. It's only like 16 hours long. And book 2, which is like full length 43-hour monster, at least has the Malazan humor in it, which book 1 very much lacks.
I wouldn't say it has Malazan humor. It has humor, but I think Malazan
That's
humor is like very distinct from.
not like Malazan the society. I mean like Book of the Fallen type humor.
I would say the humor that it has from the Book of the Fallen the most is like Midnight Tides humor, without the sex potty jokes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe a little of
um,
the sex and potty. But
a little
not
bit.
as much.
I think the true parallel to Carcanus, obviously, is like Hamlet and Shakespeare and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the funny stuff is like Shakespeare's body like
a lot of the time,
funny
yes.
stuff.
Commoner jokes.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like those.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. That's who
Yeah.
the
Yes.
comic relief
Yes.
in Carcanus.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Rosencrantz and
they are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Absolutely.
It's just I just can't take it in long stretches, you know?
Yeah, that's Carcanus. That's Carcanus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes this episode. If you want to join the read along, which there's not much left for the
Just not
main
much.
10 books. So if you want to contribute listener questions, check us out on the Legendarium's Discord, link in the show notes. You can also find us on Twitter at Green Team Pod. And yeah, hope you'll stick around and see how all of this journey concludes.
Oh man, I'm very excited. We're gonna have some fantastic discussions.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna like it more the second time through.
Yeah.
I think it really colored things that I was able to predict it so early, and then the prediction was confirmed. And now like all the pressure of like
Oh
having to
yeah.
find out what happens is off. So it's much more enjoyable now. Like I'm more relaxed and just like along for the ride. The
Yeah, because
first
you know the plot points.
Yeah, well, and then when you do predict it that early and have the prediction confirmed, and you don't have the will he, won't he question going around, you get like a pretty solid idea in your head of how that of how it will happen, which is not at all how it happens. So I was like way off despite being bang on. Like,
Yeah.
And also at the end, there's like just a moment where it's like there's a building thing, and then something happens. Like, wait, what? And then it kind of,
Hmm.
from like a cathartic standpoint, it's like I don't quite understand why that happened. I need to go look up discussions on why that happened.
Yes.
and yeah, and when that the thing that you're talking about, I didn't see that coming in at all.
Yeah, yeah, neither did I.
Panda's come the closest that I think anybody has to figuring that one.
I don't know what you're
Maybe
talking about.
got something to be excited for. I apparently made a correct prediction, or close to correct.
She was like hitting close to it in the last episode.
I still
Oh
haven't edited that.
dear.
I need to edit that. God,
Please
I'm
edit it
excited.
so I can listen to it before the next one. All right.
Wrapping up. Goodbye.
Yes.
Pew pew.
I already said goodbye. Goodbye.
Excellent.
But
Next
Later. Good
until
night.
next time.